Hello again, friends! And you are our friends, and welcome back to another edition of Jim Cornette's Drive Thru right here on another fall day. The weather's up, it's down, the leaves are falling down, they're changing colors, but we are here. The same color as always. Gray? I don't even know, but I am the great Bryan Last, your host of this fine show. And of course, the star of the show, the head chef in the kitchen, the leader of the drive-thru and the cult of Cornette, the post office ninja, Mr. Jim Cornette.
We're still here in the same color as always. You're looking a little green around the gills, Bryan.
The gills?
I thought you sounded, as a matter of fact, you were putting a little extra oomph into that, your opening oratory, even more than usual. You almost cracked a bit there on my introduction. It sounded like Justin Roberts trying to have a hernia introducing Moxley.
Well, it wasn't that bad. Come on.
Well, no, nothing's that bad.
GM! How would you do it? How would you do Justin Roberts introducing you? GM! How would you do it?
Yeah. Obviously, he did work for a while in the WWE, right?
Oh, yeah, he was there for a long time, I think.
Okay, well, yes. Then obviously he's heard Bruce Pritchard do his impersonation of Vince McMahon introducing Aretha Franklin at WrestleMania 3, which always, it would be done at the drop of a hat. The old Artful Dodger would do that just out in the middle of a parking lot. And the Queen of Soul. He loved to do that. And I think that old Smiley Roberts is channeling that when he introduces the CEO of Moxley Plumbing. Right. Anyway, I've got to bring something up here at the top of your program.
Okay.
Because at
Sounds
the top
urgent.
it is indeed urgent, because there may be vindication in store here for someone. At the top of my program, the one that most people listen to, the Jim Cornette Experience this past week, I believe I read a letter, an email, taking you to task for describing Long Island geography backwards and wrong and maligning some places and putting other ones over that weren't right. This guy was really just reading you the riot act, Bryan, because you just didn't know anything about Long Island like he did. You remember this. You were quite indignified over this.
Well, for the record, I don't know why we're revisiting this yet again. It's the third show we're talking about this stupid topic, but let me just say, everything I said was right. The email was ridiculous. The email was so factually incorrect that it was preposterous on the face of it. So I don't understand what the problem is. What now? Someone else saying I'm wrong?
On the face of it, it was preposterous. It was preposterosity. Well, we got an email from Kevin. And Kevin says, "Dear Jim and Bryan."
Hey, you there.
"Like Bryan, I am from Long Island, lived in Long Beach, Point Lookout, and Merrick. My father lived in Hicksville," which border, I've been
which
to
is
Hicksville
next to Plainview.
Times. Yeah, which borders Plainview.
That's right.
Plainview is a 10-minute car ride from the Suffolk County line. You would have to go to Hicksville or Bethpage to get a train to NYC, which this sounds like they're speaking in code. Where's Code Academy when you need it? You would have to go to Hicksville or Bethpage to get a train to NYC, which would take about 45 minutes. In conclusion, Rob from Long Island is a dipshit and knows nothing about the geography of the island in which he lives upon. And that's from Kevin, also from Long Island. So apparently Kevin's on your side.
Well, Kevin sounds like he knows what he's talking about. He's also from the South Shore. He lived in Point Lookout. I used to hang out in Point Lookout. I used to know a few girls in Point Lookout when I was younger. It's a great little area.
Wait a minute. Was that Lookout Point or Inspiration Point?
It was Point Lookout.
Yeah.
Point Lookout.
Well, apparently Rob from Long Island, in which Kevin from Long Island and you from Long Island both agree that Rob from Long Island is full of shit as a Christmas turkey. But the only thing I think all three of you are full of shit about is saying that there's a nice place in New York.
Have you ever been, other than the Nassau Coliseum, have you ever been anywhere on Long Island?
Oh, God damn it. Some in the late 90s, I did an appearance at maybe a sports card shop or a collectible shop or something somewhere on Long Island. And I had gotten, and this was before the internet, even if I would have known how to use it with the MapQuest and all that stuff. And I had directions written down, and I had my Rand McNally in front of me on my lap, and I'm driving around. I didn't know whether to wind my ass or scratch my watch. That fucking place. And I was way out there. Seagulls were shitting on my windshield.
Well, that could be anywhere on Long Island, to be honest.
Well, or New Jersey, apparently.
I don't know seagulls.
But I've not spent any time as a tourist, as a visitor on Long Island.
There are very nice parts of Long Island. Usually they're near the water.
Well, I would have asked, actually, since...
Have you ever had to deal with flood insurance?
I would have, well, hold on. I would just go say if it's near the water and old Shitstain used to frequent that area, I'm wondering if I could have just gotten an appearance early enough before he got into business, if I could have gotten an appearance at his video store or something, maybe I could have thrown him in the bay.
Well, hold on now. Shitstain, Suffolk County.
Well, there you go. No wonder that's the word fuck is in the name of the county.
It's not the name of the county, no. But anyway.
Suffolk County.
That's right.
So fuck yourself, Shitstain, over there in Suffolk County. But anyway, it's your show.
Yeah.
I do want to mention, if anybody is waiting with bated breath on their packages from Cornette's Collectibles at the all-new JimCornette.com, the sale that happened the first of the month and blew us out of the water again. The site's still up. I'm just down. But no, I will have you know that just yesterday I packaged almost 200 T-shirts alone. And by the end of the week, ladies and gentlemen, as we've been keeping you up with the updates, by the end of this week, 800-plus orders, individual orders will have been filled in the mail, already received. We're starting to get the people tweeting that they've already got their packages. It's continuing. Figures have not started going out yet. I'm trying to get the mass numbers that I can process easily without the taping of the boxes and the peanuts and the assembly line that we put together where I sign and a boom. And but those are going to be starting by next week. And we're desperately trying to make the most of our time here. So there you have it. And Hotchkiss is even using all of his fingers. He's helping me out on this.
Sounds exciting.
I gave him the 2 back. I mentioned that. I'd kept them in the refrigerator. I didn't keep them in the freezer. I was afraid they'd get... You know, when you keep meat in the freezer for too long, it gets kind of freezer burnt, doesn't taste the same. Well, one of these fingers I cut off was one that Hotchkiss used to suck on all the time. It's one of his nervous tics. So I didn't want to give him a freezer burnt finger back, so I just kept it in the refrigerator.
Well, this
have we mentioned? We got to mention. Thank you again to Tony Geezy from Heritage Auctions, who was on the Experience as a guest talking about wrestling collectibles this past weekend. And I should mention, I would be remiss if I did not mention that as we have announced, my 1982, 1983 sets of Wrestling All-Stars trading cards, the sought-after first trading card set of the modern era with the Hulk Hogan rookie card, Andre the Giant. It's the high-grade collection that's been hidden away in my vault for 40 years, will be auctioned by Heritage Auctions in their November Fall Sports Collectibles catalog sale, which opens this Thursday, October 28th at Heritage Auctions, or HA.com for those of you in the know. And we've just fawned over this high-grade, beautiful, shiny set that every time you look at one of these cards, sun comes through the windows and you hear a choir singing, hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. But I should also mention that hopefully by the time that you hear my voice, or very soon afterward, if you go to JimCornette.com, there's going to be a banner on the front page that you can click on, and it'll link you right to these trading cards that are being offered by Heritage and how to bid on them or get more information or just see the pictures of them or whatever. Even if you just want to look at them, you don't have to spend your money. Just look and Feast your eyes and fantasize on these wonderful cards. They are a sight to behold. And we would love to be held. But anyway, that's the auction starts on Thursday, October 28th and finishes up on November 18th.
Well, it's my show.
Yes, it certainly is.
And we have a lot to talk about here. We have questions, maybe a song or two. We'll see how things go. Want to confirm it's not our Einar that was murdered in a gang hit in Sweden?
Very good. I heard from him too. Yes, I did. Go ahead and keep confirming that.
He's alive, and so is everyone else that we know of as of recording right now. But Jim, there's a lot of wrestling.
I was gonna bring that up, and I forgot about it. But since it's your show, you got it. But he said he apparently is much older and obviously much more alive than the rapper Einar. But he's a much older gentleman than Einar. It wasn't the same age, so. But we were concerned. A lot of people were concerned. So the differences between Einar, the rapper, and Einar, our Einar, now is that he's much older than the rapper, and also he's still alive.
That's right. I believe his next submission will be Born to Be Alive, a take on that. Or something similar. Staying Alive, maybe? I don't know. We'll see what he submits next. But Jim, I don't know how alive things were, but did you watch wrestling either live or on tape this past Saturday? Because AEW once again had both Dynamite and Rhodes to the Top on Saturday night.
I did. Have we finished with that? Saturday night, I think, is a bad influence on them. It's getting worse and worse. Are we going back to Wednesday nights now?
I believe so, at least for the next several weeks. I don't know if there's any other changes until the change to TBS in the future or in the new year. But I must admit, I actually kind of like it on Saturday night. But then again, I'm 41 at home with the kids running around the house, so I kind of liked it better than Wednesday night, having it on Saturday night.
Well, I mean, I don't really care which night of the week it is. It seems that Saturday night's a bad influence on these people because they had some shows going on and then suddenly, boom, well, anyway. We'll save Rhodes to the Rotten because that was on afterwards. But, yes, I did indeed. What was the date of this? There it is, October 23rd. We started off strong, and then we kind of, now see here again. If I say we went downhill, is that good or bad?
I was saying that was bad. Your argument was that was good.
Well, but then it sounded horrible to say that Travis was going downhill, but it didn't sound proper to say that he was struggling uphill when he was getting better. So now, but this show was not getting better.
Where's Travis right now? He's on top of the hill.
True, he's on top of the mountain. Whoo, mercy. Anyway, so they opened up Dynamite with the World Champion. It's not even the World Championship tournament. It's a tournament for a chance at the World Championship. To be, is it going to be the number one contender or just this guy, whoever wins the tournament gets a title shot also?
I think it's an automatic title shot is the way I took it.
It's an automatic title shot. One would think that would make you the number one contender, but you never know around here. Anyway, Bryan Danielson versus Dustin Rhodes. I am not going to argue that we actually got to see a good wrestling match on this program, except to just preface at the top, why? These guys, Bryan Danielson can have a good match with anybody. So can Dustin Rhodes pretty much. But these guys are both baby faces. The Bryan Danielson is brand new here. Why is he wrestling other baby faces? They did the same thing with Punk and Darby. They've got a fixation on bringing in new top baby faces and immediately making them fight other baby faces. So I knew this was going to be a good match, but I'm just like, oh, God damn it. And because it's another, if you have babyface versus babyface or heel versus heel every great once in a while, it's memorable. Pedro Bruno, Hogan Warrior, Midnight Horseman. But if they just do it every week like they do, it's blah, like it is. Anyway, great wrestling match. Dustin is in the best shape of his life. And how old is he now? He's got to be
50.
He started in 87. He's got to be older than that now. He's got to be, doesn't he? 34.
I'm checking 52.
There you go. They had a good match. It was nice work. There wasn't anything funny. They didn't bury the referee. They didn't do gymnastics routines. Bryan Danielson got his dive in, but it didn't look, that wasn't just for nothing. They make their shit make sense. There was apparently one of the Hardy Boys fans in the crowd with a big sign said, "I love twinks." I didn't see that later on. I don't know whether they got that one out of the way or not.
I didn't see that. I must admit.
Anyway, Danielson got heat. I put heat in quotation marks on Dustin. Nominally, he was in control of him. But since they're both baby faces, he was doing it legally and he was just in control. It wasn't really getting heat on him. But then Dustin hit that fucking power slam and a nice big move and got a 2 count. Made it a little bit of a comeback. They went back and forth. They had a nice little slugfest where it wasn't just, I'll stand here and let you hit me. They were actually trading blows. And then Dustin hit that pile driver out of nowhere pretty much and got a 2 count and it got a pop. They bought it. It seemed like the people almost bought that or did buy it as a false finish, which would indicate how good the match was they were having, because the smartest crowd in the world, do you think anybody really deep down thought that Bryan Danielson was going to lose that match, but the guys in the match made him? See what I'm saying?
And I think that's one of the things that shows you how good Dustin is, because I think you could say that about almost every match. I don't remember any big Dustin wins in AEW, but I also remember him almost winning. I don't remember everything just being like a blowout. I don't remember any blowouts. I remember Dustin was close to beating Cody. Dustin was close to beating these other guys. So I agree.
Yeah, and then pretty much very soon after that, Danielson did the deal where he runs and jumps up into the guy's arms to front face lock him. It reminded me of when Adrian Street would do the deal with the kiss spot, where he'd jump up in the guy's arms, and the guy was so surprised he just caught him. But in this case, he obviously leaps up and hooks his head. And Dustin sagged because he's in the front face lock, and the referee called it. It was a good match. I hate that's a blasé finish to me, especially another baby face. And everybody wants to tap everybody out or choke everybody out these days. It's not only a bigger pop with a bump and a 1, 2, 3, and a more visual with a bump and a 1, 2, 3, but also with a baby face just in a cold match that was just put together gets choked out, then it takes some oomph away from when you want to do it for an angle with a top baby face. But I don't mind when guys whose gimmicks are shooters are tapping everybody out or whatever, but I wonder what the statistics are these days. How do more matches end? Some kind of submission hold, tap out, pass out versus 1, 2, 3. It would be close, wouldn't it?
I think so. I think that's one of the big influences of the UFC and MMA on wrestling.
What do you think the percentage was of submission versus pinfall in 1960, 70, 80, 90, or any time other than the last 20 years?
I think it's higher now than it's been in a generation or two.
But I mean, I think it honestly, as I'm trying to think back to when I was a fan, it would be 95-5 in favor of pinfalls versus submissions, because the only people that got submissions were guys that, you could have the heel with the backbreaker or the bear hug or whatever the fuck, and, that far back doing submissions. But really the only guys that had submissions were the select few baby faces that were technical wrestlers. Abdominal stretch, Vern Gagne with the sleeper, Wilbur Snyder with the abdominal stretch. Who am I missing of the classics?
And the other thing too is, they were different. There wasn't tapping out. And, when someone was in a sleeper, the referee had to lift their arms. And for some reason, that was how you check if they were alive or not. It's the stupidest thing ever. But Like, is the claw hold technically a submission hold? Or do you consider it a pinning combination?
Well, in some cases, it was a pin because the guy would put the claw on and force the guy down, and his shoulders would be down, and the referee would count it. But in other territories, it would be just the guy would go limp and they'd stop it. So it depends. But I guess what I'm saying is that it was used sparingly. Again, something else used sparingly in wrestling so that it made an impact when it happened. And now it's just, okay, I guess it's not as bad now because nobody needs people need an out, but nobody thinks they need an out anymore, especially a babyface out or a heel bitch. Whenever top guys lost in those days, especially by submission, the heel either had a bitch or the babyface had an out. And now nobody bothers to give either one of those people that thing. So it's just flat. Anyway.
But in this case, though, they are telling a little bit of a story, which is that since he arrived in AEW, Danielson has won every match in a different manner. No finishing maneuver, multiple different maneuvers that could finish you, including being choked out. So for that reason, I think it worked. To your overall thought...
Did it have to be a babyface that they picked to have him choke out, or couldn't he just have beat the babyface 1, 2, 3 with a snazzy wrestling move? I mean, if you beat a babyface, if one babyface beats another babyface with a snazzy wrestling move, and they can get up and shake hands, there you go. But if one of the babyfaces, I'm just saying, you would have had, if you got main event babyfaces in any territory, in any period in wrestling together and said, you're going to go over, the guy doing a job, do you want to fucking give up or you want to get pinned? They would have taken, I'll get pinned. Anyway, go ahead.
I mean, that was my big thing. I think the big thing coming out of the match was Danielson getting the win with a different maneuver, this one being a choke. I don't have a problem with it. I think Dustin's the kind of guy there who's bulletproof in a sense because he's not going to go past a certain point, and he's also not going to go below a certain point. And he can have sympathy with the audience. He doesn't lose anything. And to the same reasoning that there are more submissions now because there are more people who grew up watching MMA, watching UFC, and studying Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or practicing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I think it's the same thing with if you're in a dojo and you choke out your sparring partner, when you're done, you lift him up, you hug him, you make sure he's okay. So I think there is a little bit of more of a relatability there with some of these guys.
I'm not saying they should want to kill each other afterwards. I'm saying I see this with matches all the time. They have a lot of, we'll talk about probably one here in a second. They have a lot of interference. They have a lot of gaga going on, but then in some way they still manage to, whoever does the job manages to get beat flat clean in blah instead of somehow has a gripe if he's a heel or an out if he's a babyface. But there we go. Did you see the next interview after that? Which is an excellent match, by the way. I don't want people to think that I'm knocking the match, and both those guys can work. I just wonder sometimes, why can't a babyface come in the company, a top guy, and just start beating some heels instead of having to wrestle everybody on the roster because it'll be a good match? You split. Well, I guess really you don't split the audience because these people don't cheer for anybody to win. They just cheer for people to do shit. But in the old days, again, the previous 100 years before now, if you had two baby faces wrestling, you're splitting your audience, and you don't want to do that.
All right.
Now, did you see the next interview where excrement in all his glory, it was, of course, with the Elite, excrement pitched it to Kenny Omega.
I did hear that.
Kenny Omega. I wanted to see Twinkle Toes dressed up like a fucking big Samoan, right? Kenny Umaga. So Twinkle Toes did the 1-800-BLOW-ME, line voice, and the rest of them joked around. No, nothing new. They did a package on FTR and Tully and being the new AAA tag team champions. But of course, they want the Lucha Brothers real belts. God, those AAA tag team title belts look horrible. But they want the Lucha Brothers real belts at Full Gear. At least we get to see another match between them. They worked the magic with the Lucha Brothers and actually got them to have a match where they didn't really bury the referee or just do crazy shit. I loved it. Who was it? It was Cash that said we've watched, or was it Dax? Cash said that we've watched kids cosplaying as champions long enough or something like that, right?
Everyone's using the word cosplay now with wrestling.
Well, only where it fits. Some trailblazer started it and it seemed apropos, so other people have fallen, in line with it. And then Penthouse and Alex rebutted, and Alex does a great promo. And then when he said, and Alex says, because he's gonna get even for the black eye, his face looked great. I don't know who they had do his face, but it looked great.
If you listen to Alex and close your eyes, tell me it doesn't sound like a heel Mike Tenay.
Yes, that's where I've heard that voice. It didn't even register until now. I swear he has the tonal quality of Mike Tenay trying to get stern.
But it works.
Not trying to get stern, but getting stern.
Yeah, it works.
And if you closed your eyes, I think Mike still may be a better looking young man, but anyway, it's nice to see that what's the matter with you?
That was an awkward pause there after the comment.
I was looking to see what was next on the show here. I'm referring to my notes since I can't memorize this shit. It comes and goes so fast. Oh, I know. I shouldn't. It was the time for the weather report next. Sting was next. Tony Schiavone in the ring. Blackout, snow, Sting. Oh, why have I never even either? I've never noticed this before, or it's never happened before. I can't figure out how it couldn't have happened before. When Sting got in the ring, he still had the packing peanuts in his hair, the fake snow. And has that happened before and I've missed it? Because how, I guess, would you, or did he just forget to fucking fluff his head when he got in the ring this time?
I don't know.
Did you see it?
I didn't notice it. But
you didn't notice it?
It makes sense that it would land in his head.
Yeah, but
on his head.
Once he got in the ring and he's standing there, that's all I can look at is he's got the dyed black hair with the fucking fake styrofoam snow in it. It looked ridiculous.
I just kept thinking how this guy was Mr. Surfin's son, Surfer Sting. I never saw him in a North Face jacket. Now all of a sudden, every time he comes, there's a blizzard.
What? But because wait a minute, didn't he go to the Arctic Circle to find Vader in 1993 in the fucking House of Ice, the Fortress of Solitude, or
the
whatever?
White Castle of Fear.
White Castle of Fear. Yes. where a lot of us we were obviously in Smoky Mountain at the time, not WCW, but we were watching the TV, and a lot of us were thinking the people at White Castle would be scared to fucking death if Vader walked in. Because they know he'd order every slider in the place.
And by the way, how stupid are White Castle? All they had to do was threaten to sue, and Turner would have given him so much money.
Yes.
That's all they had to do was threaten to sue.
But anyway, you'll never guess what happened in this interview here because Tony Schiavone asked Sting a question, and before he said a word, someone interrupted. And it was MJF, thank goodness.
How about that heel pop for his music? They boo right away, instantly.
I know, yes. They automatically reckon it, and also they knew, well, okay, Sting had his chance. He's not going to get a word in edgewise now. And he came out on the stage, MJF, pronouns pal, MJF came out on the stage and did the verbal masterclass as usual, but he started speaking from the entrance. Maybe someone's listening because he wasn't standing there, or maybe Sting, being a veteran, being a person who's been in this position for 30-something years, said, I wouldn't stand there and let him berate me if he was 2 feet in front of me, but if he's talking from that far away and he's moving slowly toward me, then I can wait and let him get to the punchline, because that's what they did. MJF said horrible things about everybody. Darby is not coming back. He's broken Darby. The people in Florida solved their problems with gun violence and incest, which was fucking great. He told Sting it was his fault that Darby's in the, same spot as your buddy Lex Luger. And people are, ooh.
Yeah, they had a big reaction.
Yes. And then, but then when he didn't say anything else, but by then he's on the apron. So they assumed in their heads that, because that's a smart fan crowd. So they know that Lex is in a wheelchair now. But he had said all that was Sting standing in the ring boiling. And when he steps through the ropes, he comes right up to him and says, in a wheelchair, and step, boom. That was perfect timing.
That's right.
Because Sting didn't have to stand there and have his parentage questioned and his fucking children maligned and his dog verbally kicked and everything and do nothing about it until they got to the punchline. Punchline. No pun intended. Boom, perfect timing, and Sting's all over MJF, but here comes Wardlow and Shawn Spears. And Sting fights back. I know he's been doing this for years, but I hate the backhands. I like it when he whips his leather coat off and fucking whacks people over the head with it, because that's motion and that's chaos. And you can, if you take a fucking 20-pound leather coat and fucking whip it over your head at somebody, they're going to fucking put their hands up. I mean, it's motion, but the backhands, I think they're almost, what do you think? Seriously, does that break up the flow of the thing with you saying, what the fuck with that backhand and everybody's got to sell it?
Not necessarily, just because he's been doing it so long. We're used to him doing it, so it gets a better reaction than Joe Schmo.
Yeah, or Tits McGee. But then Shawn Spears clips Sting with the chair, and then after he clips him with the chair, he Paul Bunyans him 5 more times. Now, of course, it wasn't like the young folks hit each other. He had control of the chair, and he wasn't trying to do spinal damage. But do you need to just beat somebody into powder over and over? Anybody with these chairs? It was on the Crown Jewel. Somebody took 7 or 8, I think. But anyway. So now Sting is down, and MJF puts his suit jacket back on, and he sits in the chair, and he berates Sting, who's laying at his feet, and Darby watching at home. And this was, do you know what the only thing wrong with this last fucking bit of business was?
No.
Again, nobody trying to stop it. Nobody trying to get in the ring. Nobody trying to... It went on long enough, and they've got Sting beaten and helpless. Wouldn't some friend of his in the locker room, wouldn't Tony Khan, the benevolent Tony Khan, say, referees, stop this carnage? Or do we have security down at ringside? Our T-shirt fellows. And all they needed to do was have people trying. You've got a heel in the ring with a chair. You got another heel in the fucking ring that's a goddamn pro wrestler. And you've got MJF with his fucking diamond ring and his... You can play King of the Hill. Well, you can play King of the Hill with some of the underneaths of the referees or some T-shirt security, while that fucking MJF is still saying and doing the things that he's saying and doing. He doesn't have to sit there and do it quite so calmly, no urgency, but he can tell the fucking guy off. And fucking then, Wardlow, look how big Wardlow is, for fuck's sake. So you came in to tell me that for 30 seconds, the other two could keep anybody from getting in the ring while MJF says his piece, pulls out his ring, pickles Sting in the fucking face, and then here comes enough troops that they bail and off they go. But I guess it's only people who have been watching wrestling just for the last 10 or 15 years that think that there's nothing unusual or odd about this, that nobody should be trying to stop it, that the bell shouldn't be ringing, that there shouldn't be referees or wrestlers, the babyface, anybody. But to me, that's the most distracting thing. This would not be happening like this without someone trying to stop it, which not only builds the entire sense of urgency in your whole scenario and your whole visual that you're creating, but also lends it legitimacy. The people in the building. That's how we used to be able to get people come over the rail, because the people in the building could see other people trying and failing to prevent this shit from going on and feel like they had to take it upon themselves. But the people here in the building see, well, there's the announcers sitting at their desk calling it. Cameramen are shooting it. Nobody's trying to stop it. This is obviously a setup, sports entertainment happening, a skit, a play. And that's why they can't get legitimate heat out of it, because there's nothing to lose yourself in. But I mean, you know what it's like when some real fucking mark or somebody tries to hit the ring that is not supposed to. You see people whipping headsets off and fucking T-shirt guys going for them, and the referee making a beeline.
In a perfect world, you can get a cop or two. Yeah.
Yes. But no, so it was just, it's another skit that they're doing in the show. Well performed, but there's no urgency.
I can't disagree with what you just said. I think it would have improved it. But with that said, I thought it was a great segment. We said they really needed to do something to build the heat beyond just jumping Darby. This may have been it.
Yes.
I hope they keep Darby away from TV until Full Gear. I know that's a few weeks away. But based on this and based on everything and the whole thing's about MJF beating him down mentally, keep him off TV and then bring him back and just don't lock up. just fucking wipe him out with a dive and kick some ass and have a kick-ass match. I'm intrigued to see this match. These are two guys that I think should work really well together. And I thought this was a good segment and a good angle, and of course not the last we would see of MJF and Wardlow and crew on this episode.
Well, and I don't want anybody to think that I'm complaining now that MJF got to lay out Sting, the veteran icon. No, that's fine. I'm just saying, when you're doing something like this, and you know, I would say I don't know why Sting didn't speak up, but I don't think Sting particularly gives a fuck about these details. But if they're doing something that's so good like this, how many times has Sting been laid out and beaten up? And that's one thing they've stayed away from. So that means something. And MJF, a guy who can get verbal heat like that and people are predisposed maybe to dislike anyway, that's the perfect guy to do it with. That's why I want to make it as see-through or as not see-through as possible. As I want to make it as good as possible. You want to make it as fucking impactful as possible, instead of people being able to see flaws in the logic or not create your entire chaotic atmosphere. The only time they create chaotic atmospheres on this program where it looks like that people are just willy-nilly going into business for themselves and making shit up is in the goddamn stupid matches they have, instead of the fucking angles. The matches, it oftentimes, well, you know with who I'm talking about, the Hardy Boys and their crew, that looks like they're just making shit up on the fly, obviously cooperating with everybody to do it, but it looks completely unplanned. Well, this shit, the angles look planned. It should be the other way around. Anyway. But I'm like you. I'm with you. I want to see MJF and Darby Allin.
It should be good. And of course, if Darby misses Sting, if he thinks, oh my God, here I am in seclusion, hiding from MJF, hiding from Plainview, Long Island. I wish I had something to remember Sting by. Of course, he could get a wonderful oil painting of himself and Sting during happier times.
Well, you know, that's exactly correct. And I can see it now. I can see it hanging up on the wall. Maybe even they painted on black velvet. and all that beautiful snow falling, and there's Darby Allin and his Uncle Sting riding a horse-drawn carriage across a snow-filled field to Grandma's house.
Maybe you shouldn't say
Christmas.
uncle. Maybe you shouldn't use uncle.
Uncle Sting?
Darby just told a story about it. He was driving with his uncle.
Oh, well, Sting, hey, he's sober these days, and you can't drive a horse-drawn carriage while you're drinking. Well, that's not right. But folks, if you'd like to have yourself painted in a carriage or anywhere else, the folks at Paint Your Life can do it for you. We have talked about them so much here on the program over the last few years, and we've had so many of the reader and viewer and listener testimonials that they got the paintings of their family and put different generations together, or people who were never in the same place at the same time, or a cherished pet, or a lost loved one, whatever the case. The folks at Paint Your Life can take any photograph or combination of pictures and put them together and make a beautiful, professional, hand-painted portrait. As I said, it can be children, family, special place, pet, combine people into one painting. With the compilation portraits, you can bring together family members from different generations or from across the world, so you can reunite people that haven't seen each other or maybe never saw each other. There's no limit to the things you can do. All you need to do is just imagine this. Anyway, you can order a custom-made hand-painted portrait in less than 5 minutes, and you can get it in about 3 weeks from their team of world-class artists. It makes the perfect holiday gift, and we're coming up on the holidays. So for heaven's sake, get a painting of yourself and a turkey for Thanksgiving. And remember that turkey forever. Whatever you want to do, they'll do it for you. Folks, at paintyourlife.com, there's not only no limits, there's no risk. If you don't love the final painting, your money is refunded guaranteed. And as a limited time offer, you can now get 20% off and free shipping when you text the word DRIVE, D-R-I-V-E, to 64,000. That's DRIVE to 64000. That's 3 zeros on there. DRIVE to 64,000. Bryan, paint your life. Celebrate the moments and turkeys that matter most.
Terms apply. Gobble, gobble, gobble. But anyway, Jim, let's move on here with the show. And of course, back to Dynamite.
Back to Dynamite. Well, we had a brief interlude. Penelope Ford wrestled Ruby Soho. And I'm just wondering now if they can have a new faction. This is going to be perfect. Bryan, are you ready for this?
I don't think so. Please don't say whatever it is you're going to say. I don't even know what you're going to say. Please don't say anything.
Oh, a new faction in AEW. Soho, Solo, Comarato, a go-go. Soho's perfect for Solo, okay. Comarato, and a go-go.
That wasn't bad at all. I had the worst. I thought you were going to do the worst.
I thought I was going to put you in the toilet, in the sewer. You thought I was going to just have I
thought that was going to be the name of the faction, actually, the sewer, and you were going to just start naming people. I was afraid of where you were going.
But anyway, so Penelope Pit Stop wrestled Ruby Soho. And then we got to see MJF and Spears and Wardlow in the back. And now Wardlow brings up, hey, what was that shit last week shoving me into Sting? And MJF was blowing it all. Oh, man, I had the fight or flight instinct. We know which one he picked. And he blew it off, but he's assigned Shawn Spears to be. So apparently FTR have managed to get out and do their own thing now. And Spears and Wardlow are going to be MJF flunkies, and I can't particularly argue with that.
I think they're still aligned. Remember last week he rented him out to Andrade.
Well, but at the same time, FTR and Tully had their own package. They're not going to be hanging around in the background while interplay goes on between Wardlow and MJF and Spears is involved. Now that would make it busy, and FTR would be spare pricks at the wedding in this interaction. So hopefully it's not going to be like they all have to be together all the time. FTR can do their own thing.
I don't think the Pinnacle ever broke up, so I think they're all going to be somehow aligned with each other going forward.
Well, At least they weren't standing back there while all this went on. But basically, Shawn Spears has been assigned to Wardlow to be his accountability buddy. So apparently the MJF on Long Island is watching South Park as well. But now I guess I'm starting to like this, because before it was just an odd comment every so often from MJF to Wardlow, like, hey, dummy, and Wardlow wouldn't say anything. And remember, I said if you keep on browbeating the flunky that the people want to rebel for so long without him doing anything, then they don't really care. And they started it was too soon. It was over a year ago. It was goddamn 3 weeks after Wardlow showed up, wasn't it? They started teasing dissension. And then they left off of it for a long time.
Yeah.
Now, if they're back to it, okay, and if Wardlow's going to be saying some things, and if they've got Spears in the middle of it, then at least you don't have to. When they break MJF and Wardlow up, Wardlow can get over with Shawn Spears. He can beat the shit out of Spears, and it's not going to take any heat off MJF. So it's because I was afraid if they rushed the turn and Wardlow's a babyface, then they're going to have him beating up MJF, which would be way too quick and not a thing to do. So now there's some more moving parts to this. I'm willing to see where it goes. What about you?
We'll see where it goes. It's funny, though, the whole time I'm watching this, I'm saying, you know what? Spears with that cap on looks more serious. When you don't see his goofy head of hair, because he can't pull off the mohawk and look tough. I'm not saying he isn't tough in real life or whatever. He just doesn't look it with the mohawk. He looks ridiculous.
Yeah, he looks like a fucking Native American Baron von Raschke.
Like T.J. Khan had a kid. I mean, I don't know what the fuck that look is. But with the cap on, I'm thinking, oh, he looks serious. Maybe this is going to be like a shift and they'll make him a little more serious. And then right at the end, he makes the goofy face to Wardlow. I'm like, oh, no, he's still a goof.
Yeah, but it's somebody for Wardlow to beat up eventually.
Yeah, so I mean, it seems like they're doing it sooner rather than later. It's been more frequent recently. Usually when the ground starts moving a little bit more, you're waiting for the big one to happen. Seems like it's going to happen soon.
Well, next on the Parade of Terror was it's Bobby Fish, who I'm a big fan of, against Anthony Greene, who I'm not a big fan of. I don't care if he can wrestle or not. Have you ever seen a worse looking, worse dressed, worse haircut, worst physical specimen looking plain, bland? They've been cleaning up homeless camps here in Louisville. I've seen it on the news. I think I saw Anthony Greene getting booted out of a cardboard box. He just looked like a bum. What were those pants about? So anyway, Bobby Fish got a good win. That's lovely. I wish they'd have a little bit more standards about the appearance of the job guys they use on national television than using the guys that are 140 pounds or dressed in a goddamn Salvation Army drop box or haven't seen sunlight in years or whatever. But anyway, this was just an excuse, this match, to get Punk out. Because obviously Bobby Fish won, thankfully, and then went back and got heat afterwards on this guy, which was just a manufactured reason for CM Punk to come out and make the save. But thankfully, did you notice he hit the ring and made the save first, and then they started playing his music when you saw him in the ring? He didn't wait for he's closing up the logic loopholes and run-ins now. He's everywhere. He's like a wrestling doctor for this company. He has the right demeanor, whether he's coming out for an interview or for a match or this stuff for a save. The shit doesn't happen, sports entertainment style where the music plays and everybody gets to pop and then he comes out, nice friend you are, waiting for your fucking music before you go out and help this guy. And do you know why they did this right there?
Why they did this segment right there?
And did you notice why they had to milk the heat on Anthony Greene by Bobby Fish, maybe a little bit longer than you might have gone for that situation. Did you notice why?
No, tell me.
This was a sly one. Right at the top of the 9 o'clock hours when Punk hit the ring. So even though they didn't have him in a match or even advertised in some way, people switching around after their 8 to 9 o'clock show was over with. And Vince taught me this 20-something years ago with Raw. You would always at the top of the hour have one of your main stars in the ring or doing something. So Punk's run-in came at the top of the 9 o'clock hour, and right as people would be switching by, they heard, like Mussolini! And they saw CM Punk in the ring. And then they focused, they kept the camera on him, and they milked the stare down with him and Fish, and they kept the camera on Punk as he left the ring because they got 2 minutes at the top of the hour of CM Punk on television. That was smart. Of course, then the rest of the show sucked, but they might have hooked somebody.
You know, when this was starting, I kind of groaned because I have not been a fan of Bobby Fish as a singles wrestler. And here he is wrestling another guy who's just off NXT TV with a different name, obviously.
Was he on
I think he was
on NXT.
I think he was. Hold on. I'm pretty sure he was. What's his name? Anthony Greene?
Anthony Greene. Did he wear those pants on NXT?
August Gray.
Oh, my God. Because he was involved in a deal, I think, and whatever happened, by the way, to poor Timothy Thatcher?
Yeah, I don't know. That's another good question. I have no idea.
August Gray was involved in something, and I said, this guy is the worst fucking bland, putrid, outlaw-looking fucking guy. And he went and got worse-looking pants and became Anthony Greene. Go ahead.
But I'm seeing this like, oh, here are two guys off NXT TV, and I'm not too excited about it. And I got to admit, I was wrong because I thought Bobby Fish looked fantastic here. He was kicking ass.
I love Bobby Fish.
And Anthony Greene did his stuff, and it was quick. It was in and out. He really didn't get too much in. Bobby Fish destroyed him. I was thinking after this, wow, I wonder what they're going to do with Bobby Fish. I saw they announced the official he signed. He's all elite. He's not going to do anything with Cole, it looks like. What are they going to do with him? And then Punk comes out, and I'm like, I could go for that match.
Yeah.
I could really go for that. And like you said, he hit the ring without the music. So there was the confusion, the pop that slowly grew when people realized it was him, the chanting, and then the music.
Yes.
And I liked that, and I thought it was good, and he had intensity, and I want to see him and Bobby Fish. I really like this segment a lot.
And imagine that. They established that Fish is a heel by beating up the poor overmatched fellow after the match so that somebody needed to come out and stop that type of activity. And it's just suddenly wrestling angles break out every once in a while in the middle of this show. But we'll fix that because we go to the back with, have they fired every single interviewer they ever had?
Yeah,
because
where's
now
Dasha?
Tony's everywhere. I'm not arguing about Brady. Mark Henry's gone. Dasha's gone.
Where's Dasha?
Is there something I need to know about you and Dasha?
I'm just a fan of her work. I think she's the best ring announcer they have and the best backstage interviewer they have.
Well, they don't have her anymore, apparently, because now Tony's everywhere.
She doesn't do shtick with Britt Baker. I like her better.
But Tony was with Lio Rush and Dante Martin, and Lio Rush has decided that he's got to mentor and teach Dante Martin because Matt Sydal didn't do that. And they've got a tag team match next week against the Sydals. And Lio did all the talking except for one line that Dante recited. Lio Rush can talk, and he's got oomph, and he's got personality. I hate him trying to be a wrestler because he's microscopic. I've said before, he could be $1 million manager with that line of bullshit and that slappable face. I don't know where this is going. Dante Martin is an amazing physical performer in the ring, and standing around on an interview, he looks like a defendant about to be arraigned. I've never seen a blander, more disinterested, humble, shy, quiet. Did I mention bland?
Well, I think the reason he looks like he's about to be arraigned, as you put it, is because there's some sort of weird tension with him and Leo. It hasn't been completely defined.
But there's no tension between he was standing there like he was fucking about to be sentenced to fucking Rikers Island, and he had his head down, and the way he recited that memorized one sentence, they got to get that fella in some. A lot of these young guys, you would think they act like this in person. You would think that they have no personalities, because here is the chance to show any personality you've got. And yeah. So I don't know if they're thinking Leo's got double, so he'll make up for it. But we never know. Is he going to quit the business next week again? Who knows what the fuck he's going to do?
I hope not. I like Leo. I actually like Leo Rush. And again, I know you don't like him in the ring, and I understand your reasons. And thankfully in AEW, there are some guys small enough in stature that it wouldn't look ridiculous him being in there in this flyweight division or whatever it may be. But it hit me watching this, and you may not get the reference. Did you ever see The Last Dragon? With Bruce Leroy battling Shonuff, the Shogun of Harlem?
Okay, apparently I've missed that one.
Apparently you missed one of the greatest movies of all time.
Okay.
Anyone who's within a few years of my age who doesn't love that movie, I don't need to have anything to do with you ever. He's a heel version of the little brother in The Last Dragon. Leo Rush is a heel version of Richie from The Last Dragon. Everyone who knows that movie will know what I'm talking about. I think Leo Rush is really good. Again, I wasn't buying the whole leverage buyout thing.
I think he's dropped that.
It's not as
said it the past
over
day
the
or
top.
past week or two, right?
Yeah. And I actually, even though I'm not as big a fan of the high-flying style as others, I like Dante Martin because he does things a little differently. Leo Rush, if he's in there with guys similar in size, let's see. And Matt Seidel's not a big guy either. I don't even remember what his brother looks like, to be quite honest with you.
How big a boy is his brother? He's about the same size.
So, yeah, I am interested to see where they're going. I think it's all to build up to the brother of Dante Martin's return, the other brother. In this whole thing, there's a lot of brothers in AEW. The Seidel brothers, the Jackson brothers, the Martin brothers, the Rhodes brothers, and keep going on and on.
The Smothers brothers.
The Smothers
brothers.
That's right.
Brother. Well, should we move on to the match that everybody was talking about? And by the way, hopefully Lance Archer is okay. He's put out a statement and appeared coherent. All the words were in the proper order, but geez, money, Pete, I like Lance. I worked with him in TNA, 10, 15 years ago. He's a great guy. We've said he's got a lot of talent, but they've had him doing the stupid stuff, which we're going to talk about in a second. I don't want to just bury him right off the top since he just landed on his head and nearly broke his neck. And it's not burying him. It's just burying the people that are allowing him to do this or telling him to do this. But I've said before, just because you can cut your own ear off doesn't make you Van Gogh. And just because you can do a moonsault or whatever move doesn't mean you should. And with Lance being taller and heavier and a more legitimate, badass-looking guy than almost everybody on this roster, you can take him seriously as somebody who would do some damage to someone. Why is he doing moonsaults? And why is he being forced to, or being allowed to, whichever one, make himself phony almost every time he appears before he gets a chance to do his shit? He's made himself a fucking phony goof by beating up a supposed fan that everybody knows is not a fan. And or a cameraman or whatever. Remember, we've seen it. Just throw away stuff. He'll grab somebody and bring him over the rail that's supposed to be a fan, or he'll attack a cameraman and choke slam him, and then go right on with their match, and nothing is done. There's no repercussions. It's fucking ridiculous. And again, in front of the smartest audience to begin with, probably in wrestling. Did you see him pull the fan over the rail? And then they started using the fan as a foreign object?
I almost thought it was a woman at first.
Well, I'm not saying it was a manly man fan.
Well, I'm just saying at first I was like, oh my God, is that a woman? And it took
Somebody said it looked just like one of the Mulkeys because of the blonde hair and the pink shirt. But by the way, we haven't even mentioned this was another tournament match for the shot at the World Championship, which is already a joke because, as we know, our little dog Pockets won his first round match in this tournament over Powerhouse Hobbs Friday night. So it's a joke tournament. So they jump-started in the aisleway before the introductions, and they're fighting around ringside. And okay, it's Archer and Kingston. If anybody's going to do that, then that would be Archer and Kingston. And Moxley, obviously. Moxley can't do anything else. But then suddenly Archer supposedly reaches over the rail and grabs allegedly a fan and picks him up and gives him a scoop slam onto Eddie Kingston on the floor. And Excrement had to say, oh, he's grabbed that fan. He's grabbed that fan. If you noted, JR never said a goddamn word. And then as this thing started going on, the only reference that JR made to the guy at all was, I don't know who this blonde guy is. Because what else is he going to say? If he says that's a fan, then Jim Ross is just a fucking phony bullshit shill, just like Excrement and everybody else on his program in the fans' eyes. JR knew he could not call that guy a fan. Because after the full scoop slam, then Archer brings the fucking fan into the ring. Remember when they had a goddamn brain aneurysm collectively all at the same time when some fat schlub from Des Moines or wherever jumped up on the ring apron when Jericho was in the ring?
Oh yeah, that was one of the last times they tried to cancel you.
Everybody leaped into action. The doctor was going for the guy. The referee Jericho went for the guy after the guy was neutralized. Everybody in sight's going for this guy. Well, now Lance Archer has dragged a fan over the rail, scoop slammed him on the floor on top of his opponent, then brought the fan in the ring, set him up on the apron of the ring, and choke slams the fan off the ring onto Eddie Kingston on the floor. No security, no chaos. Well, chaos of that type, but no legitimate activity like, oh my God, what's he doing? One of their announcers, thankfully the one that nobody takes seriously anyway, called him a fan. Jim Ross, the voice of the modern wrestling generation, knew better than to fucking get to shit on his face and just blew it off. And then they fought on the floor for a second more and got in the ring, and the referee rang the bell to start the match. Bryan, if one of the wrestlers legitimately really has attacked one of the fans in the front row, brought him in, slammed him, choke slammed him, and etc., is the referee going to call for the bell to start the match after that?
Only if a random person makes it a three-way all of a sudden.
Well, there you go. Just bring the fucking fan in and make it a three-way. So what they did was phony and rotten and is bad indie-style shoot angle bullshit. And these two guys could have had and did end up having, until what happened, a nice hard-hitting match. You know, they're badasses, blah, blah, blah. But they've made it phony, stupid, and meaningless because they killed it before they started it with this fucking ridiculous bullshit that nobody believed, that everybody could see through, didn't make any sense. And even if they're trying to work a shoot, then the work of the shoot was rotten because nothing in that scene looked like it would look if that was really happening. So they failed in that recreation. So I don't know how people can say, oh, wow, you know, everybody knows wrestling's bullshit. So, Cornette, what are you talking about? Does that mean that because we know it's bullshit that we should not then at all make any effort to try to make it look legitimate? If it's working, they're not working well because it looked phony on the face of it. Anyway, so they had a match. And then Lance Archer did a moonsault and landed right on the top of his head. And I'm glad he was okay. I can't see how that did, from that height and his weight didn't break his neck. He rolled out to the floor. The doctor checks on him. The referee's asking him. Eddie Kingston standing there with his thumb in his ass. What else is he going to do? And then Archer rolls back in the ring, and Eddie Kingston rolls him up, beats him with a wrestling move. Of all people. Why didn't the referee stop it? For fuck's sake. The guy that was unable to continue was the one who was going to lose anyway. Right?
Right. And once the referee was down there, the longer he was down there, the more I kept thinking, oh, he's about to stop it. He has to. But he didn't.
When George Foreman knocked out Joe Frazier, the first time that Frazier hit the fucking mat, right? And did the referees say, okay, hold on. We'll stop this. George, roll out, or Joe, roll out. Take a fucking minute. Get your shit together, because we gotta finish the fight. No, if it's a fight, it was finished. The guy can't continue. It's not like in the fiasco between Owen Hart and Steve Austin, Austin had to win. The guy that was paralyzed was supposed to win. So there was some, oh shit, what do we do? But in this case, everybody knew the fucking finish. If he's going to goddamn lose anyway, stop the fucking match. Even if he's not going to lose, he just landed on his head. You can't just say, oh, okay, we're going to stop this fake stage fight that we're having because somebody actually just really got hurt. Because that's what they did. So I don't understand in what world that nobody just said, Tony Khan, back in the back at the gorilla position, didn't just say, ring the bell and stop it. Can't continue. That's a better out for Lance Archer. He was trying, they say he was trying to finish the match and mad because they wouldn't let him finish it. So he'd rather get beaten 1, 2, 3 by Eddie Kingston than beat himself and have an out. Then he gets at any time in the future, I should have won that tournament, but I beat myself and Kingston advanced. That's a better finish than fucking just beating goddamn for Archer. It's a better finish than just Eddie Kingston's going to roll him up 1, 2, 3. Fuck, does anybody think about these things anymore? Oh my God, what'd you think?
I mean, I don't know what else to add to that. Not my favorite style of match. I like Kingston. Haven't been crazy about Archer. Although there have been moments where I've enjoyed him. I don't know where Jake is. I'm going to guess he's not going to be around. And then the moonsault. And I mean, it's easy to dissect it afterwards and say, oh, he should never have done it. And I know what you think, and you've been consistent. And, I start thinking it afterwards. Oh, why is he doing it? And then you think, oh, he's done it so many times. I at first thought he actually it sounds so stupid, but on the first time I watched it, I thought he protected himself with his hands somewhat. And I know that's such a silly thought when, like you said, his weight, the height, how far up he was.
Well, he got his hands in there because
right,
if you go back and watch it in slow motion, and I mean his hands definitely touched, but his hands were in position. If he had rotated all the way, he was trying to protect his face with his hands because he was envisioning he was going to land flat on his stomach. The hands being there did something, but if you watch, the first thing that touched before the hands was the head. And it was fucking awkward. Go ahead.
What I was going to say was in regards to what to do there. I mean, that's the interesting thing. Is it the referee's job? Does someone tell the referees? The referee's supposed to know right away what to do? Does someone need to tell the referee? What would have been the perfect way for this to be handled?
Obviously, the referee, unless unless he saw somebody fall on a chair leg and they were impaled or something, right? The referee would obviously be checking with the guy to see if he was okay, see if he was coherent. You know where you are you okay, whatever, so that he could give a signal in the back, because if Tony Khan's the guy, running this show, then he's on headset and he would be asking, is he all right? And then, to me, when it goes so far as that Lance has to roll out of the ring and get his shit back together, which he did.
Yeah, that's the point for me. That's the point.
At that point, then if I'm Tony Khan, I know who's winning, and I know not what the finish, I know what the finish is supposed to be, what they've gone over, but I also know the end result, who's supposed to win, and I'm going to tell the fucking referee in his headset, stop it and declare he can't continue. Then the worst thing that happens is Archer immediately regains his wits and he gets in the ring and he pitches a bitch, and maybe they do some impromptu fucking fisticuffs. That's the worst thing that can happen. You got your proper winner, and you didn't leave that awkward spot where everybody goes, oh, he's really hurt, and now they don't know what to do. And if Archer's not okay, then you've stopped it and you've prevented him from... He just landed on his head. Even though the roll-up that Eddie Kingston gave him, the old Oklahoma side roll there, that wasn't going to hurt anybody that didn't have a broken neck. But if he had a broken neck and he just got kind of rolled up on his neck, that might fucking fuck the broken neck up worse. You don't know what the fuck at that point. So that's why I say I think Tony Khan should have been the one to say, fuck it, call it, he can't continue. And err on the side of safety, because you know what the finish is going to be to begin with. It's not like it's like that SummerSlam match, as I said, with Owen and Austin, where that would have fucked up some major plans.
I have something here that was sent to me. This is from the Wrestling Observer website. It was noted that it was Doc Sampson who told Archer to go straight to the finish, despite Archer wanting to keep going, and Archer was upset backstage after the match. Archer did not have a concussion and was able to pass all the tests backstage.
But go straight to the finish? Okay.
Is that what the doctor's job is, to order you to
No. The doctor's job should be to administer the tests and determine whether or not that the guy's got a concussion or not. That's the doctor's job. But if you think there's a issue, if the guy's bell is rung so bad that he can't continue, and him losing is the finish you're going for anyway. The point that I'm making is it was just awkward and phony to have all that go on and then him get back in the ring and Eddie Kingston use a roll-up that he's never used before and probably never use again. And that couldn't have been the finish that they planned. So he didn't go straight to the finish. He just go straight to getting pinned. And then you can leave so we can determine whether or not you'll be paralyzed. Well, I don't fucking know what's going on here. The point is, I'm offended in two different ways. I'm offended because the guy could have been hurt and hurt worse. And I'm offended because it made the match and everything involved with it look phony. Because in the UFC, in pro boxing, in wrestling down through the years, when has a guy obviously been unable to continue and his opponent just stands there and the referee said, well, let's give him all the time he needs? What? That's not the idea. You lose a fight when you can't continue. If you can't get back up, it's not that fucking hard. I don't know what the fuck's going on.
I can't get past the idea the doctor didn't say, let's stop it. He said, go to the finish. Although I remember all those amazing times that Dr. George Zaharian booked from ringside in Allentown. And, of course, Dr. Schwartz in L.A. decided to, on the fly, change the finish of Blassie Tolis. That's a known story. How could the doctor say? That's the thing that gets me. After that, you call the match. You can't send him back in the ring.
I don't know. I don't understand it. But we hope Lance is all right. And that's the thing. They've already had a broken neck. Starks. Remember Starks? What was it? What was the move? Goddamn.
Adam Page threw him over his head, I think.
Yes, the German suplex. Starks landed on his fucking head, and at the time we did the review, I said, my God, it looked like he landed right on top of his head, and he bounced right up to his feet and didn't even sell it as long as you would sell a regular German suplex, and it looked like it almost killed him. And then we come to find out that it did, that it broke his neck, and that's why he was out. And so they know already these guys are landed on their fucking heads. And this Lance's looked worse than Starks's did. And it broke Starks's neck. And he was out for 2 or 3 months or whatever it was.
Oh, I thought the way Starks landed looked worse than Lance.
No, but this is a heavier guy coming from farther up.
Yeah, the other one, we just saw the neck bend in half.
I don't know. Well, the point is, I don't want to be doing either of those things. So I don't, but we've established that you can break something in your neck. Starks did that. You can break something in your neck and get up and finish the match. Doesn't mean that was a good idea for you to do that. And where is Starks lately?
He's on commentary on Rampage.
Well,
is he hurt? Is that why we're not getting Starks Punk?
Remember, he came back and had one match, was it? Did an angle or two?
Brian Cage match, but it may have been more than the Brian Cage match. I just don't remember. He came back and he won the FTW title.
Yeah, he hasn't wrestled much since the incident. So I don't know whether he's having worse problems than what they've said or not, but that was just completely preventable. And by the way, I'd just like to say, for all those people that want to close the Mexican border and not let the Mexican people into our country, I am sitting looking out my window at a crew of 4 Hispanic gentlemen who have framed an entire 25 by 55 2-story garage that my neighbor is putting up on his property. And now there's one guy up on the roof with a nail gun looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger, just fucking nailing shit right and left, and another guy by himself hauling a 24-foot extension ladder up onto the other side of the thing and climbing up it himself like he's trying to get loose from Alcatraz. And meanwhile, I had a white American landscaper over here last week to do me some mulch beds, and he said, oh, I can't possibly get a shovel out here till next spring. And these guys are trying to escape from Devil's Island. If they were they could build a skyscraper in a week and a half, just the 4 of them. So I think we need to have more fine Mexican gentlemen in the workforce and less of these lazy white people. Go ahead.
For the record, go ahead. For the record, you have no idea if they're Mexican. They could be from anywhere in Latin America.
I can hear them screaming in Spanish at each other.
That means nothing. They could be from Uruguay or Paraguay.
Well,
or Colombia.
They ain't from fucking Cleveland, I'll tell you that. But wherever they can work their ass off, though.
All right. Well, speaking of work their ass off, did anyone, I don't remember what was next after the neck injury.
Well, nobody that could work their ass off, because here came Dan Lambert, Scorpio Sky, and the other Page. I shouldn't say that. Sky's a good worker. He's just lost in here. The other Page was dressed as a bigger douchebag than the Hardley Boys. Did you notice, especially the shoes with the no socks and everything?
They've kind of been dressing like the same as the Young Bucks in a lot of ways, except that because they look like athletes, they look a little different than guys who look like the Young Bucks dressing like that. It is interesting when you compare the 2 outfits and how you perceive the 2 different groups wearing it.
Yeah, the douchebaggery is evident in all of them to me. I fast forwarded the first part of this because the other Page was doing all the talking and he talked forever. And I'm not going to stomach him. But Sammy Guevara came out and he can talk and he just rattled it right off. And Sammy basically told the other Page that he hadn't gotten any farther because he's the only person in the company who gives a shit about what he does is him, basically, himself. And then he had to call Dan Lambert the fat-faced dipshit. Again, one of your top baby faces' whole gimmick revolves around cowboy shit. So there should be a moratorium on anybody else being allowed to use the word shit on television. But since Jericho basically, his life force is sustained by people chanting cheap shit that he can get them to chant. So he started fat face dipshit. And since he wasn't there, another member of his group has to carry it on. But anyway, this is, again, help me out with this. Last week, I said they had a confrontation. There was a challenge for a 10-man tag team match between Lambert's guys and the Dinner Circle. But it wasn't really asked or answered. And Lambert said he was going to have some conditions. And it got confusing. And we said, what exactly did they challenge for? Well, we're going to find out next week. I'm not sure I still know. And several people had a swing at trying to explain this. So Sammy or Lambert gave the stipulations that he wants: a 10-man tag at Full Gear, Dinner Circle versus American Top Team. But there's extra stipulations. If Sammy puts the TNT title up against the other page next week, they can get the 10-man tag. But if Sammy loses next week, he will leave the Dinner Circle as well as lose the title. So then I guess he wouldn't be involved in the 10-man tag. But then, and Sammy then said, so what you're saying is, and he tried to repeat it. That used to be my code. Whenever in OVW or Ring of Honor, I was conducting an interview as an announcer, and one of the guys botched the stipulations, I would say, so what you're saying is, and I would repeat it properly. Well, Sammy repeated it, but he accepted, but then said, but if he wins, then he gets to pick 3 members of America's Top Team to go along, I guess, with, because at first I thought, wait, a 10-man tag with 3 members, and then it's 3 extra ones in addition to Paige and Sky. Right?
I guess, yeah.
And then the heels ran down to beat up Sammy, but here comes Santana and Ortiz and Jake Hager, and they ran the heels out. And it was long and not particularly gripping. And even Lambert was off from his usual boisterousness in this one. So what'd you think? I don't know.
I've hated everything with Lambert and AEW so far. I just think it's all been lame. It isn't good. And then you throw Jericho in there and it takes it to a whole nother level of suck. So I'm not really interested. And I know what you feel about Ethan Page. To me, Scorpio Sky's the blandest guy on the roster. He's just bland. He's all right in the ring. He's been a tag team champion. You wouldn't know it. He's bland. I don't see too much with him. Like you said, who else? It's going to be obviously Junior Dos Santos, you would think. And who? Who else will be in there? I'm not digging this feud at all. And I kind of just
and by the way, if we see Junior Dos Santos one more time until they get him if he wants to spend the time to get in a brief program to where he can apply his shooting skills in some type of believable fashion without trying to do pro wrestling that he's very green and awkward at, then if we see that again, then we've seen Junior Dos Santos. Will we ever be able to do much with him after that if they keep seeing that he's obviously working when he's in the ring?
I don't know. Look, the hardcore AEW fan will love it because they love everything. And they'll love chanting Jericho's song while he very, very slowly looks at them and smiles, listening to them sing his words back to him. But beyond, and whatever you said earlier was brilliant because Jericho is all about the cheap pop. And I get that's his thing, but it ain't my thing. And it's just so much lame stuff always. And this whole feud has been lame. Jericho's lame. I want it all to end. And I can't wait to see what he's going to be when he's done being Biker Jericho, whatever the fuck he is now. What's the next iteration of Chris Jericho?
I want to see James Lipton Jericho. When he gets just a little bit older, he just sits in a chair in the middle of the ring and talks to the other guys and asks them probing questions.
Oh, I don't want, no. The less Chris Jericho interviewing people, the better. Please.
All right, well, next up, again, last week, Adam Page came out and cut an incredible promo and looked like a main event star and sounded like a main event star for the first time in 2 years since he's been hanging out with job guys and a sad, depressed drunk and morose and undependable and driving, kids to ice cream on lawnmowers and all that stuff. And we said, where has this guy been? He could do this all this time and they didn't let him. Guess what he did this week? He's in the back with the dork order, walking in with a beer in his hand and apologizing to him for not being a good friend or whatever the fuck it is that allegedly in this goofy story he's let them down in some way. And then he brings up the next week is Halloween, and boy, hopefully they'll have some good costumes, and then he leaves, and they're all muttering about the costumes they're going to have next week. So there'll be more comedy next week. And some people actually got on the goddamn internet after I praised to the heavens his main event promo last week and said, well, Cornette, you don't understand the story. He couldn't have done this interview unless he had done all these things. He'd lost his confidence and drifted aimlessly and did. They've missed the whole point. The whole point was it was long-term booking, all right. It was just long-term booking that was phony and silly and involving people that couldn't perform well and or carry off their part of it. And it was involving people that nobody gives a shit about anyway. Not that all that didn't make sense in the end, but that he shouldn't have been doing it he shouldn't have been a sad, morose drunk. I don't see how that gets anybody over. But you can't honestly tell me that these people think that this has been some kind of grand, multi-layered, long-running angle to get this guy over as a main event superstar when he's been hanging around with a bunch of idiots, obviously phony drinking, and doing stupid shit like riding him around on his lawnmower to get ice cream. None of that was necessary for this story. They've just been amusing themselves because they think that they're all funny. So now he's back to, here the job guys are, and now they're going to wear costumes next week. And he's back to drinking beer. I don't know that anybody in the world drank more beer at one time than Bobby Eaton or Buddy Landell. I never saw either one of them do it on television. Anyway, then Jungle Boy. Oh, God damn it. Jungle Boy, who's a legitimate talent. Great baby face, as long as he doesn't have to talk. They put him in a match with Brandon Cutlet so that he can beat up Brandon Cutlet in a minute or less. And Cutlet's in his blue jumpsuit with his fucking stupid gimmick on. And they do the joke match, and then Cutlet lays there in the ring doing comedy about how hurt he is. Oh. While Jungle Boy actually gets on the microphone and challenges any of the elite pieces of shit. There's another shit. And they won't come out. So then Jungle Boy puts the snare trap on Brandon Cutlet so that he can funny sell some more, so that Adam Cole can come out and do a pretty good promo. But again, they've ruined Cole. Cole comes to the ring and Jungle Boy nails him off the apron, and there's the Hardley Boys suddenly from behind, and they glom Jungle Boy, and they all take him to the stage. And the Hardley Boys give him the pissy little knee lifts. And then they did something that I've never seen before in wrestling ever. They took the guy and threw him off the stage onto tables covered with black sheets. Oh my God, the humanity. They've ruined Adam Cole now. Why put your baby face in a joke match against this fucking clown if he's just going to fucking make it funny and ruin the whole point? They're trying to be serious. They've commit attempted murder on this guy, but the segment started with him beating up a comedy figure who wasn't even taking it seriously. So there was that. What'd you think?
Not too much to say. I like Jungle Boy. Glad it was quick. But then everything afterwards. Cole, I thought about it during the promo, and I've said it to you for a while. Omega, I don't mind. And then Cole's next to him. Cole looks like a star. Cole's here, he looks like a star. And then you put him with the Young Bucks, it drags him down. This didn't do it for me. And quite frankly, it's not that I'm against crash pads or anything. But when you do it so frequently, it really defeats the purpose. And we're seeing it all the fucking time. And it's both shows. It's not just AEW. But it doesn't. Someone getting thrown off a stage doesn't mean anything to me anymore. He'll be back. He'll be back.
That's what I'm saying. It's like the stage dive. Who got thrown off at the Crown Jewel or at one of the shows, maybe SmackDown that we just watched? They dress the WWE dresses their crash pads up better than AEW does sometimes. But I wonder if some of the fans that go to these shows, if they ever go home going, shit, nobody got thrown off the stage tonight. What the fuck? Are they upset if that doesn't happen at every show?
Why hasn't any wrestling promoter started using a cannon yet? Like the circus does. I mean, it goes against everything I believe in with professional wrestling, but I think it would get a pop.
You know what? We could have done that in the 90s with Vader. Have you seen that clip?
Vader?
The old sideshow guy, the guy that they shoot the cannonball into the fucking guy's stomach and they show it in slow motion in black and white from the 30s or whatever. We could have done that with Vader.
I meant put the guy in the cannon and shoot him to the other side of the arena.
No, I want to see somebody get shot with a cannonball.
None of the strongmen ever did it. Where was Patera with a cannon? That would have worked.
Do you remember the same night that Jerry Lawler wrestled Andy Kaufman in Memphis? Lawler was double booked that night because they couldn't just have Lawler against Kaufman. They had to have Lawler advertised to actually wrestle a real match, right, to make it kind of legitimate.
Well, let me stop you right there because a lot of fans probably don't realize that, and they probably think Andy Kaufman versus Jerry Lawler was the main event, and that was all Lawler did that night. Explain why what you just said made sense, why it wasn't the only match he did that night. It couldn't have been.
Well, it couldn't have been, but it was advertised as the main event. In the newspaper, and that's all the attention was on it, but they didn't want people to, it wasn't supposed to be any kind of match for Lawler. There was no doubt that Lawler was going to rip Kaufman limb from limb and beat him in some fashion. That's what the people paid to see because they were mad at Kaufman. They want to see him beat up. But at the same time, to advertise the rest of the card, they advertised Lawler in a Southern title match against a guy named The Monk, who was a member of Jimmy Hart's first family, is the heel stable, because that way Lawler's wrestling an actual match on the card in defense of the Southern heavyweight title, and that made it more legit. It's not like that Lawler's going to break a sweat on Kaufman, right? But he's got a real match, too.
With The Monk.
With The Monk. Well, of course, when they did the match, they locked up and Lawler backed him up into the ropes and drew back and hit him with one right hand and knocked him out. Boom, covered 1, 2, 3. And the people blew. They loved it. Yay! And Jimmy Hart pitched a fit. But the deal was the way they promoted the thing. The guy that was named The Monk, he was a younger guy. He was in his 20s. I don't know where he came from. And I don't know if he ever went anywhere else. But he was in a territory for several weeks, and he was a different kind of guy. I'm not sure he was all there. And he had a bald head and this really weird face, and he'd wear the monk robe, and he looked, and he was a big raw bone kid, as they used to say. But he told to promote this match, he told Jimmy Hart, I want you to hit me in the stomach with a baseball bat. What? Yeah, Jimmy Hart's going to be promoing the match, and he's going to show everybody how indestructible the Monk is. And the Monk had told him, yeah, I'm going to stand there. I want you to hit me in the stomach with the baseball bat. Don't worry, you won't hurt me, right? I can do this. God damn it. So Hart's cutting the promo and the Monk's standing there. He spreads his robe out and everything. And Hart takes the baseball bat. And he said, look at this, Lawler. You can't hurt this guy. And he hit him in the stomach with the baseball bat. And the Monk, he didn't double over. But God, I've never seen a look of more misery on a human being's face. And you can see he's just trying not to fucking put it over. He's trying not to go. He's trying not to puke. And see Lawler, and Jimmy reared back almost like he was going to do it again. And the Monk kind of turns away. And he got back in the fucking locker room, and he and he took his fucking. I think he might have been wearing a tank top, or if he wasn't, he opened the robe or whatever, and there was an imprint of a baseball bat right across his fucking stomach. Yeah, all that to get knocked out in one punch. Anyway, speaking of getting knocked out in one punch, the main event was the long-awaited return grudge match between Cody Rhodes and Malakai Black. And I mean, you know, we've said that Malakai Black is one of the guys that he's interesting. He's spooky. He's a grown man. His shit looks good. You know, he's greenish in spots, and he had the mind games thing he was playing for a while there made it odd. But this is a guy's been getting over, and every time that he and Cody come anywhere near each other, the people are cheering Malakai Black like he, just saved a baby from a burning building, and they're booing Cody out of the place, right? And it was the same during this match. But there were parts of this match that were very good, and parts of this match, I don't know what the fuck was going on. And I think it comes from, Cody can work. And Malakai Black can work pretty. He's got a different style, but they don't do too bad when they're working with each other. But they have to use so many smoke and mirrors and just it's overbooked in some cases. There was no Brandi here. That was a positive. Arn Anderson was ringside, but they started out hot. Cody started going for the figure four. For what I didn't know, they'd had a issue over the figure four, but he kept going for it a bunch. But it was quick-paced wrestling with just the heel being cheered and the babyface being booed. But then for their break spot, they did a deal where Malakai Black just goes out and pulls a chair out from under the ring and slides it in the ring, but Cody grabs it, and here comes Lee Johnson and Brock Anderson to the ring. So their break spot is, well, what's going to happen here? But the babyface has a chair and 3 seconds at ringside, and the heel's out there all by himself, barehanded. So there's our breaks. Usually when you go to a break spot, shouldn't the babyface be in jeopardy? Oh my God, what's going to happen? But in this case, like, well, Malakai Black's going to get that shit kicked out of him by all these motherfuckers. Don't go away. Was that kind of the vibe you got?
Yeah, look, every Cody match is like a wrestling blender. It's a bunch of things that worked 30 years ago. You put them in a blender, and whatever order they come out in, just do it.
Well, anyway, apparently during the break, Cody Rhodes gave Malakai Black a crossroads off the apron through a table onto the floor.
During the break.
During the break. But at least they showed it when they came back. During the break, here's what happened. And Cody took the worst of the bump. He gave the guy his move, which involves him flying off the apron of the ring and crashing back first through a table. And they didn't take the I don't know what you call it, but there is on some of these tables, there's a band around the table. It's sometimes they're plastic, sometimes they're some type of aluminum or metal or whatever, but there's a band around the edge of the table. And when they break, that thing just pops up. Well, Cody went through the table and the fucking band came right over the top of his face. And that, anyway, Cody took the worst of the bump in giving the other guy his finish off the apron of the ring, but that gave Malakai Black an excuse to get a little color. but then he shoved Cody into the post and he got color. And both of them sold laying around on the floor forever. So we started hot and at a quick pace. We slowed things down when we went to the break. Coming back from the break, we'd seen during the break, we had a big table bump. And now they're just kind of laying around bleeding. And suddenly, here comes Andre Olio down the aisleway. What the help me try to remember, because there's so much of this. Why is Andre and his assistant mad at Cody?
Well, if you remember, you didn't watch the last match on Rampage was Pac, as he's otherwise known, versus Andrade.
Yeah.
And Malakai came out, leading to Cody coming out through the crowd. From everything I know, that was the introduction of all these characters into this feud.
But wait a minute. Why did Malakai come out with Andre versus Pac? Whose side was Malakai on?
At first they teased you didn't know, and then he was on Andrade's side. It was all a plot from Andrade, his former WWE cohort, to attack Pac, who, I don't know if he was one of their cohorts. He may have left before they got there.
Oh, boy. So anyway, Andre comes down the aisle, but his assistant is in the ring and and Arn's standing in the ring, because now that since the guys in the match are laying on the floor bleeding, so Arn Anderson is in the ring. But then Andre comes down the aisle, but then Andre's assistant is in the ring and tries to hit Arn with the laptop, but Arn spine busters him and pops up to his feet, and Malakai Black is in the ring and blows the mist in Arn's face. But for one thing, he missed Arn's eyes, and he got the top of Arn's head, so it looked like Arn had a hairdo from Earl Scheib.
Yeah, it wasn't his face at all.
There was no block anywhere around his eyes. But the referee is standing there on the floor watching everything that's going on. Was this a no disqualification match? Was this a street fight? Was that what? There are just people that have come in. Nobody in the match is in the ring. Everybody that's in the ring doing shit is not even involved in the match. And then the mist misses. The mist missed. And then Pac attacks Andre and fights him off. They fight off, Brian. And then Cody and Malakai Black get back in the ring and they start having the match again. And then Malakai Black hit a very pretty moonsault body block. He ran to the ropes, jumped up on the second rope, did the moonsault. Cody standing on his feet, and Malakai Black took him right out of his boots and bam, and planted him right flat on the ring. And then Malakai Black pops up to his feet, and so does Cody Rhodes. After he just got planted with that moonsault body block, he popped right up and grabbed Malakai Black in the crossroads and hit that and got a 2 count. Okay, so we're just trading shit now without bothering to register the effects of it. And they continue having their match again after all this shit just happened in the middle. Now Cody Rhodes is kicking the shit out of Malakai Black, and the fans are booing him. But suddenly Malakai Black comes off the top with a great double foot stomp. Holy shit, made Balor's look bad because this guy's fucking a lot heavier, and he got higher.
That was the best foot stomp I've ever seen.
Yeah, and it looked safe, too. Not that I want to be laying there to find out, but it was very well done. And then he hit a German suplex, got a 2 count. And then Malakai Black hits his spin kick, that kick that he's been knocking everybody out with, right? He's knocked them all. Their knees freeze and their liver quiver when he hits that kick. And Cody takes it and falls into the ropes, kind of over the middle rope, so he can't be pinned, right? Which was good. The guy just hit his finish, but Cody's in the ropes. But then, suddenly, when the referee backed Malakai Black up or whatever, Cody stood up and ran across the ring toward Malakai Black right after taking that kick. And Black backdrops him over the top, but Cody lands on his feet on the floor, so Black climbs up to the top rope and does a moonsault off the top rope to the floor, but Cody has slid into the ring. Black wouldn't have hit Cody. Cody slid in the ring before Black even took off, but Black lands on his feet. And then Cody hits a dive through the ropes, throws him back in the ring, and hits the Cody cutter off the ropes, plus a crossroads, plus a double arm pile driver, and then pinned him 1, 2, 3. So thanks for coming, Malakai Black. Remember what I talked about? Where was Malakai Black's out? Where was his bitch? Malakai Black hits his finish that's knocked everybody else goofy, and Cody sells it for 10 seconds, and then he's running again. They do this crazy sequence where they're just flipping and landing, and then Cody just hits basically 1, 2, 3, 4 big moves in a row and pins him flat in the middle. There is no question that Cody Rhodes beat Malakai Black. He just beat him. And the kids these days think that somehow made Malakai Black strong, because they'll say, well, look, it took a dive, and it took a Cody cutter, and it took a crossroads, and it took a double arm pile driver for you to beat him. So it made him look strong. No. It made it look like you took a fucking hammer and beat him into powder right in the middle of the ring with move after move, and then beat him, and then wiped your feet on him on the way out. When the babyface gets a Hail Mary move that stuns the fucking heel for the requisite 3 seconds to get a pin, that's great. When the babyface hits 4 uncontested finishes on a motherfucker and pins him, that guy just got beat. And then, after that, Arn was up talking to Cody. He had a towel. He was dabbing his eye like he was crying. He was overcome with emotion. And he's up talking to Cody and toweling his face off. And then you could see more that the mist missed his face because there was no black around his eyes. But we just gave Malakai Black 4 big moves and pinned him flat in the middle after taking his finish kick, and his fucking mist didn't even incapacitate a 60-year-old retired wrestler past having to towel his face off. I'm not scared of this guy anymore. Your thoughts?
Wow, where to begin? I was impressed with Malakai Black in the match. I thought he looked great. I thought the moonsault body press looked great. The kicks looked great. The German suplex looked great. The mist, he's either got to drop it or learn how to get someone near their face.
Yeah.
He's getting everyone on top of their head, unless it's sponsored by Keeps. I don't know how this is going to really help anyone. The problem is the finish was wrong. Whatever you want to say about the style, look, every Cody match is overbooked. Even the ones you love, there's way too much shit at ringside, way too much smoke and mirrors, because Cody can't just go in the ring and work a match. He can't do it. He has a block. He's a mental block. He can't do it. But the rejection of Cody by the AEW fans was a long time coming, and some of us saw it well before it came.
You called it.
And we'll talk about Rhodes to the Top in a little bit, but the idea that, especially with the reaction there, because Miami, you didn't see Rampage, it was taped, Cody got a pretty nice pop. I heard from people in the building that night, wow, the fans here cheered for Cody. And I said, no, it's Miami. They would have cheered for anything that night. I saw that show. The only thing they were going to boo was Dan Lambert. They were going to cheer everything else. And I was right, because Cody got booed out of Orlando brutally. Thank God Brandi wasn't there. It would have been really bad then. But what do you do now with Cody? Because they've tried to do this reclamation project. The fans aren't taking to him. It's either public posturing, where he's saying publicly that he doesn't want to turn heel, beyond the reality show and other interviews, that he can never do that. He can never turn his back on the fans, which, I mean, give me a break.
Well,
it's either that or there's a major tone-deaf problem right now where Cody is trying to force himself down everyone's throat, a la Jeff Jarrett, a la Triple H at their worst, in a way that no one wants him to be right now. And unless you embrace it, I think it works if you fully embrace it. Heel Cody, break the stipulation, give him the world title. Brandi gets to be the heel that she wants to be. If you keep Arn around, Arn's more effective as a fucking heel than just a friendly old coach. It all makes sense, but if they're fighting it and it looks like they're having a real difficult time accepting the reality, there's a problem, and this finish was a problem.
Well, and honestly, it would be brilliant if his constant statements everywhere about I'm not going to turn heel are the beginning of his heel turn. Of course, I don't like somebody coming out and saying, well, I'm not going to turn heel, because then that obviously says, oh, I do fake shit. And I just, it's not really me. It's just how I decide to act. Do I want people to like me or not? So it's more fake wrestling bullshit when you say, I don't want to turn heel. But if his heel turn begins by him saying, I'm not going to turn heel, and then he just claims, I haven't turned heel, you people have, or something like that, it might be interesting. But yes, Malakai Black has beaten him, twice now?
Yeah.
So yes, you can't beat the babyface all the time, and the babyface does need to get some rebuttal or whatever, but this is beginning to be a pattern. And we've talked about it. Somebody comes in, Cody puts him over strong, gets wiped out, carried out, goes off and shoots a reality show or a game show, and comes back and gets even. And this time he got beat twice and then came back and got even. But I don't know if it was time for Malakai Black to have gotten even with, or to get even with Malakai Black at this point. He's still new, and they know what they've got with Cody. And part of the reason I think he's got the heat is because he keeps leaving and going to do other TV shows. Because, the wrestling fans 30 years ago and the wrestling fans today maybe only have one thing in common, and that's that they don't like the wrestlers that they think don't want to be in the wrestling business and are trying to do other shit. That's, and
it's bigger than that with Cody.
Well, it's bigger than that with Cody, but I'm saying that's the only thing that the two sets of fans from years ago and now maybe have in common, is that they all would have felt that way at any point in time. Speaking of which, should we go to the series finale? Oh, I'm sorry, season finale. We can only hope that it's the series finale of Rhodes to the Rotten that aired right after this fiasco went off the air.
We can do that? Sure.
Because the way they timed this, he gets his revenge on fucking Malakai Black for all the things that Malakai Black has done, and then they show the Rhodes to the Rotten segment, which featured him basically agreeing to lose to and helping put over Malakai Black in a fake match that they congratulated themselves after. So if it hadn't hurt Malakai Black's image to get beat flat in the middle of the ring on the wrestling program, it finished him off pretty much as a serious goddamn guy on the reality show program when they showed on camera this guy being so grateful to Cody for fucking letting him win.
I'll never forget it. What did he say? I'll never forget what your brother did for me. What did he do for you?
Well, we'll get there in a second. That was later in the program. But the show opened up with, again, my God, Brandi is training for a comeback. She's acting like she's had this great body of work to look back to, but can't leave her legacy like that. She has to have one more run. My God, has anybody ever figured out how long was she actually in the wrestling business? I mean, as a wrestler, she couldn't wrestle, so they made her a ring announcer.
I don't remember why, but I believe she started as a wrestler, a wrestling trainee. They made her a ring announcer. And then after Cody and her left WWE, she became a valet and did some wrestling. I don't know what the frequency of the wrestling was.
The point is, they're trying to act like she's Mildred Burke trying to make a comeback and get in the ring in her old shape or whatever. the babies around now. I was hoping they would reveal that the baby's name was Damien and a new nanny would show up with a dog. That would have made this show interesting. But instead, we got Cody Rhodes giving QT Marshall and one of the Stooges a box with Brandi's placenta in it, explaining that she's going to eat it. Bryan, you just had a child up there. Well, not you, but your family. Was there any boxing, transporting, or eating of placentas going on?
No, we don't do that kind of thing up here.
Who does?
Although I did get to use my one joke with the doctor, I'll never get to use it again. Which is whenever they turn to you and say, "Dad, would you like to cut the umbilical cord?" "Yes, with my teeth." And every time it brings down the room. You're not a doctor.
So after we finished with the discussion of the placenta, this show at a long period of time had just Cody and Brandi sitting on a couch making small talk, and their small talk is interminable. And these things that they're talking about are not interesting. Even if they were happening to me, I wouldn't be interested. Cody showed up backstage at one of the AEW events, and this got a lot of play because some of the comments that you have made and the fact that you've said you want to see if Twinkle Toes or the Hardley Boys or any of their cohorts or ensemble shows up in this program. And as Cody is talking to the referees backstage, Pieface is standing in the background and his face is blurred out. So one of the Hardley Boys would not allow himself to be seen on this program, even in background, which may be the first example of good judgment either one of those two cretins has ever used. Now that settles the mystery that we had going on.
There are several people who did not want to have anything to do with that reality show. That was forced upon everyone backstage. And when I brought up the Omega and the Bucks, I kind of knew what the answer was already, but now everyone got to see it with the blurred face.
Of course, he didn't look that much different than he normally looks with his face blurred.
It hid nothing. I mean, it was completely obvious who it was.
The idea. You still got the idea. It's just maybe his face wasn't blurred. Maybe it's just his face. So Cody's showing his baby pictures to everybody and hugging everybody, and MJF at least made one 7-second cameo. He said, "Hey, congratulations. No, just kidding. Go fuck yourself. Nobody cares," and left. So that was all right. And then suddenly they jumped to 5 weeks later. That's what it said on screen, 5 weeks later. And Brandi is training again. She's lost 35 pounds. That's what she says. 10 pounds of that was the baby, right? And then how much did the water that broke that we heard about, how much did that weigh? If you're carrying a fucking belly full of water around, once that breaks, you're down 5 to 7 pounds there. And then the placenta, that looked like a big box. After she flushed all that shit out her birth canal, she probably only had to lose about 6-7 pounds.
They really lost a great opportunity with the QT Cody feud where QT could have said, "And guess what, Cody? I ate the placenta." You trusted me, you fool.
I ate the placenta. Anyway, so then Cody asked Brandi about her ideas for her return. And obviously this is a work because she couldn't have said this with a straight face, but I'm just thinking that maybe they're trolling the audience because she's saying, "Well, what about a choir singing and I'm coming down in an elevator?" And then Cody says, "Why don't you start at the bottom?" And Brandi thinks she ought to be a heel and Cody thinks she ought to be a babyface. And each one of them says the fans would want that. I got news for them. The fans don't want either. They don't want either. So then they get into the Malakai Black and Cody Rhodes brawl and rivalry and etc. And Cody's admitting that he got booed in Charlotte, his hometown, and he's asking why he's getting booed. I wrote down real quickly his wife, his tattoos, his game show, probably his reality show. All those things may be contributory. And then Cody and Brandi do a bit about how tired he is. And again, it's not even like they manufactured some interesting shit for a fake reality show. This is not interesting. But then they go to Brandi again in the ring at QT's school, and she has to describe to him how they cut her open and pulled the baby out and all this other gross shit. So I'm trying to think, are they trying to make it gross to get men to watch it? Because men don't want this frilly fucking fluffy baby shower bullshit. So they're trying to make it grisly so men will watch it. But what men want to hear that a woman was sliced open and had a baby pulled out of her? What men, women, or children? What dogs, cats, ferrets? Who wants to hear that, Bryan?
I don't know who the target audience for this show is, quite frankly. I think the target audience is Cody and Brandi Rhodes.
Cody and Brandi. And, you know, what I'm looking at in the ring while she's working out with QT, she's a beginner's class wrestling school level performer here. All admiration to her. She just had a baby, but she kept talking about that she thinks she should be a heel because she's enumerating all the ways that she's gotten this immense heat in the past, that she believes the entire reason she's had all this immense heat is because people were screaming, "We don't like you and want you to not be on the show." But she's confusing it with. So then they actually showed Cody and Malakai Black going over their shit in the back, talking it over, what they're going to do. Both these guys should be ashamed of themselves. I've mentioned before, Tony Khan is either an idiot for either not getting the final edit over this show or letting it go, letting this particular stuff go on the show, but I blame Cody the most. I knew Dusty Rhodes in 1986, and I'm sorry. I have to think that if someone had said, "Dusty, we're going to put you on TV, but we want to shoot you talking your match with Flair over beforehand and then hugging each other and shaking hands and congratulating each other after you come back about how great it was," I don't think Dusty Rhodes would have done that. That's just my opinion. And I'm ashamed of his offspring for doing it. As well as I'm ashamed of him for talking about the character of Cody Rhodes and how this fake fucking match that they just obviously showed everybody was fake is so important to his future. And then Malakai Black beats Cody 1, 2, 3. And then there is not only Cody, but Arn Anderson and Dustin Rhodes ready to congratulate and hug and French kiss Malakai Black after the thing's over for laying Cody out. Oh, thank you for sodomizing and attacking and paralyzing my brother. That was great. Oh, I forgot. Cody had teased his retirement in the ring earlier and then come back and hug the guy who kicked his ass in their, obviously we now know, fake fight. And then Tony Khan comes out and verbally fillets Cody Rhodes. And they actually say, well, now the plan's for me to come back in New York City. So they've already told the people that they had their plan at that point, and this is all planned. It's all scripted. But he's still trying to, he might quit after that, according to what he's telling Tony Khan, because he's tired. So he might leave after that for a while. Because he's so tired. I'm tired, Bryan. Tired of being alone. Tired. And then Cody and Brandi talked about how tired he was. And Brandi actually said, "You've been burning at both ends for years." Well, some goddamn penicillin could have put a stop to that long ago. That was a quote. You've been burning at both ends for years. Wonder where he caught it from.
Is that why his hair turned white?
Possibly. After he spent the night in Brandi's house, I guess. His hair turned white. And he says he'll never turn heel, blah, blah, blah. I wrote, I hate all these people. And then 2 months later, they actually said that on screen. Now they're at Arthur Ashe Stadium, where he had told people the plan was for him to return, and guess what he did? He returned. And Brandi was back, too, so she gets the triumphant walk. She was there for the reality show. Remember when we said, why the fuck is she there? Why would you bring your wife down to the ring and give her a spot to do where she flips off Malakai Black when he's laid waste to all your friends and your coach and you and everybody else? So they could get a fucking spot with Brandi for their reality show. And Brandi said, when you hear that noise, that means I didn't get forgotten. No, you weren't forgotten. Well, we tried, but we couldn't. You wouldn't let us. She thinks the cheers were for her and the groans were for somebody else, apparently. Because she got to walk down to in New York with Arn Anderson and Cody Rhodes. She's walked, so they're getting cheers, so it's for her. She's convinced that she is over, legitimately. And they showed Malakai Black winning this because that was a couple months ago. But Cody has said he doesn't have all the answers on the character of Cody Rhodes. If I could make it a thing where I could put a collar, like they have the dog collars that give them a shock, and I think this is very inhumane. I'd never do this, but the dog collar, it gives them a shock when they pass over the invisible fence to keep them in the yard.
Yeah, we have a neighbor over here who has one of those, yeah.
Yeah, well, he can go fuck himself, too, because I advise you to put a fucking fence up if you don't want your dog to get out, motherfucker, instead of giving him electric shock therapy like some goddamn mental patient in the 50s. But anyway, I would like to take one of those collars, and I'd like to put it on every wrestler in the business. And every time that one of them referred to what their character would do, I would like to put 7 million volts into that motherfucker's cranium. And maybe after the first time or three, they'd learn. That was the end of that show, I hope. Certainly to God, that cannot be brought back.
I certainly hope they do. I enjoy the tone-deaf family displaying their tone deafness on TV. I enjoy it. So we can laugh about it here on the show. But other than that, I don't know why anyone would watch this. I think part of the problem is, in Cody's head, Cody's the hero. And while there are certainly many kinds of heroes, I don't think anyone else thinks of Cody as a hero. But maybe if he took some time, he could be a stat hero.
That was probably one of the lower 10 percentile of segues on this program, but I'll try to do something with it, folks.
And that's a stat.
And that's a stat right there. I'll tell you who's a hero. All the people telling me that I didn't know who Lamar Jackson was. Apparently, Lamar Jackson was a football player for the University of Louisville, and he was quite accomplished. But since I don't watch football, I didn't know that because I don't pay any attention. If he'd have played basketball like people are supposed to at the University of Louisville, I might have known his name. But folks, he was merely a name listed in sample copy from our fine friends at Stat Hero. And I'll tell you this, it's the first ever daily fantasy sports book that puts the player in control and winning within reach. Now, for example, if you know how Mark Andrews and Lamar Jackson blew up like that, if you know who those people are, then you'll be able to use Stat Hero to your advantage. Because, folks, Stat Hero shows you their lineups and dares you to beat them. It's you versus the house in a head-to-head fantasy matchup. Your name, or you name. Your name, or you name. You name your stakes. That's what I'm trying to say. You, as in you, the person I'm talking to now, will name your stakes with winner take all. You've got the advantage because Stat Hero is showing you their lineups ahead of time, and nobody else does that according to the copy in front of me right now. You're in total control. You're the dominant one here. You crack the whip, and they grovel and say, yes, master, yes, master. Anyway, Stat Hero is DFS the way it was meant to be, one-on-one. And right now, you can play Stat Hero and change the odds. Go to stathero.com. That's STATHERO, stathero.com/JCE to sign up for free. And right now, you can get a 100% bonus match on your first deposit using the promo code JCE. They're matching your first deposit. So what do you got to lose? Your house, your car, your kids, your family, your livelihood.
Don't think of it that way. Think of all the things you can gain.
That's only if you go too far. See, if you don't go too far, you're going to win with these people. You'll lose with the other people. So maybe if you've already lost your house, your car, your wife, your dog, and your livelihood, play Stat Hero and win it all back. You might even get a better wife. Folks, go to stathero.com/JCE and enter the promo code JCE for 100% first deposit match. If you love the fantasy sports, you're going to love Stat Hero.
Well, Jim, it seems like second-generation wrestlers have been in the news a lot recently, and of course, it seems like just as soon as we were done recording the experience, talking about at the end of the show, talking about that segment at the end of SmackDown, the transfer of the belts, or titles, or championships, whatever they call it there, with Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair, we talked about what we had seen in some of the early reports, and apparently that wasn't the end of the story, or apparently there was more to the story than we knew about at that time.
Yes, and by the way, we made the comment that it was an awkward segment, but that I didn't see anything particularly worth screaming at each other over, especially when I've seen shit really go off the rails on live TV. And remember the time that Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels went off the air on Raw, unintended to go off the air because Michaels was playing ha-ha and all that other shit. This didn't seem to be a big deal, but apparently there's underlying tension between a variety of these young ladies that came to the surface. So even though it didn't seem like a big deal at the time, it was even bigger than we thought that it was amongst them.
Yeah, and I have to give credit to Mike Johnson of PW Insider Elite. I guess the website is actually pwinsiderelite.com. He's been all over this story with constant updates since the story first broke on Friday.
He's been on it like a cheap suit, and that's what Mike looks like often, is a cheap suit. He's so frazzled all the time. He works so hard.
Will you leave him alone? He's doing a fine job. But here are some of the things that, again, PW Insider Elite has covered so far. I guess, the most recent one is about another fight. Apparently there was going to be a fight backstage between Charlotte and Becky. We haven't even gotten to that yet. Or there was a confrontation between Charlotte and Becky backstage. And it was in gorilla position in front of Vince and Bruce Pritchard. What are your thoughts on that, first of all? A big fight right there in front of Vince.
Well, it was an argument.
A big argument in front of Vince.
Let's not just go off the beam here. No, they were obviously mad. Apparently, the bone of contention, as was reported first, and it still seems to be that that's what started the whole thing, was that Charlotte didn't want to do the thing that they were laying out because she thought that it made her look weak, or her title reign look weak. And apparently there was some disagreement over whether she should hand Becky her belt, like, here's my belt, and then Becky'd be standing there with both belts and then throw one at Charlotte. And so Charlotte was holding the belt. When Becky went to reach for it, Charlotte pulled it away from her and then dropped it. And then Sonya Deville says, pick that up, like she's the school marm. And she did, and then they had their awkward exchange, and Becky left in a huff, and the stuff with Sasha went on and everything. So Charlotte and Becky were apparently yelling at each other about the whole thing, where Vince and Bruce would be at Gorilla. That's where chances are both of them would be. So they're screaming in front of Vince, both of them. And I guess, what happened next? Did they have Charlotte? They walked her out of the building. Security walked her out to defuse the situation. She was bum rushed, or did somebody else got involved? Sonya Deville was mad and wanted to fight about it.
And that's what I have here, because of course we did hear that she was escorted by security out of the building after all this. and this is escalating quickly. The article here from 8:38 this morning as we are recording, PWInsiderElite.com by Mike Johnson. The headline, Becky Lynch wasn't the only talent to get into it with Charlotte Flair at SmackDown, the latest on the Flair-Lynch fallout. The talk of the weekend was the Charlotte Flair-Becky Lynch confrontation that went down after their segment on Fox's Friday Night SmackDown this past Friday. As PWInsider.com first reported early Saturday morning, the heated back and forth between the two took place after Flair, in an unscripted moment, pulled the Raw Women's Championship away from Lynch and dropped it, with the belief being that it was done to make Lynch look stupid and one-up her, that's in quotes. Sonya Deville demanded Flair pick the belt up, which Flair did before handing it to Deville. The Lynch confrontation took place in the gorilla position, in full view of Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard, among others, and received the lion's share of attention initially, but Lynch wasn't the only person upset with Flair. Two different sources described Sonya Deville as, quote, mad enough to want to fight Flair, and at one point, also having an argument with Flair backstage at SmackDown. The Lynch argument was said to have been loud and angry, with Lynch described as standing up for herself after being disrespected. Thus far, the blame for the situation has fallen on Charlotte Flair, with several claiming that the situation started after Flair made it clear she felt the segment made her and her championship reign look weak. There have been several alleged instances where Flair's behavior has led to issues in recent months, including a legitimate back and forth with Nia Jax in the ring on Raw. The criticism of Flair has been that she's self-indulgent towards protecting herself and making sure all the attention is on her, but one source not close to Flair said, quote, let's be honest, that's what stars do. They make sure their star power remains the same or greater. Another source noted that the resentment towards Flair has been building in recent weeks, and it was, quote, just a matter of time before something happened. Flair was escorted out of the building by WWE officials, which some close to her pointed to as a sign of disrespect in itself, given her family's history with the company and her importance to the SmackDown brand going forward. That's the crux of the story. Jim, what are your thoughts?
Also, here's the thing. Walking her out of the bed, did they think that somebody was going to jump her, or she was going to turn around and jump somebody else, never going to have a pull apart? Can't you? I mean, I've kicked some people out of the fucking building. Go on, get out of here. Go home. I'll call you later.
It is interesting.
What the fuck?
Usually, for my experiences, when someone's escorted out of the building, it's to protect them, not the other way around.
Well, but I'm just, again, amazed and gobsmacked at the reaction from everybody over this when I've seen in that same company, Shawn and Brett got in a goddamn fight in Hartford that night, the famous hair pulling incident. And nobody suggested that they were going to escort Brett out, and Shawn left on his own recognizance before anybody could suggest that. I don't think they would have. I mean, that's why I'm saying all of the years of the clique and all of the massive misbehavior in an unprofessional manner from guys not wanting to lose belts, getting in fights in locker rooms, fucking who knows what else. And suddenly this is a goddamn scene of chaos where all these girls are going to have pull aparts over dropping belts and shit. And I'm not trying to take up for Charlotte Flair because everybody's, Cornette loves the Flairs. The last time I took up for a Flair was a few weeks ago when poor Rick was being maligned for the Dark Side of the Ring episode. And I tried to take up for him. And what comes out a day or two later, he's leading a fundraiser for Donald Trump. So you can't say anything good about anybody anymore. Nate, of all people. I can't even fucking compliment Ric Flair anymore because he wants a goddamn criminal megalomaniac to fucking ruin the world again. So I'm not taking up for Charlotte because I like Rick, because I'm not happy with Rick because of what I just mentioned. But what the fuck? This whole thing. Yes. Stars are self-absorbed and do try to protect themselves. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I'm saying there's been much more egregious instances of it in this company in the past, and nobody ever flipped out. And there must be just all kinds of heat amongst these girls if what we saw in the ring led to screaming and yelling in front of Vince and all that stuff. And I don't doubt that they're probably all pissed at Charlotte. But again, from the company of, Shawn Michaels and the Clique and fucking shitting in people's bags and not dropping belts and hijacking live television programs and et cetera, et cetera. And suddenly they're having people escorted out because the girls got in an argument. I don't get it. I think they ought to let what Watts would have done. Hey, Charlotte, Becky, there's the ring. You got 15 minutes. Work it out.
Well, Vince gets a little more loopy. That option may be on the table, but this whole thing, I mean, remember a little while back, some people jumped on me because I was bold enough to say that Ashley Flair will be in AEW not too long from now.
Al?
I don't know how much longer she is for that company. Now, that puts them in a tricky position, because what do? If she's difficult and no one wants to work with her, from Nia Jax, who's had her own issues, to Becky Lynch, who's pretty popular within the company.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's the range there. If you have problems with everyone, and you're difficult to the point where you're being escorted out of the building by either security or officials, I don't know how often that happens to a wrestler.
I haven't seen it. I have not seen it. That's what they do, like at the office when they fire the office employees. They have them walked out, right? So they can't steal shit or something.
Yeah, but Andrade wasn't there to clean out her office as they were escorting her out. But that's the point. Andrade's in AEW. Her dad is right now in wrestling purgatory till whatever happens, happens. But does WWE release her and hand her to AEW? Does WWE punish her for whatever is punishable here? How does WWE deal with this? Because of AEW, assuming AEW would want Charlotte Flair, and for talent reasons, they absolutely would. Whether there's a personality issue or not, time will tell, but they stayed away from Tessa Blanchard for a reason, even though her dad was there. Charlotte Flair, again, her husband's there, or her future husband, whatever the hell's going on with those two. What do you do if you're WWE? How do you handle Charlotte Flair right now?
Is this part of the plan, Smithers? Does perhaps she's like, I don't give a fuck because I'll either be here or they can let me go and I'll be there. Maybe she's just like, I'm just not going to fucking take any shit and trying to force the issue. Who knows? But how can you discipline someone for accidentally, which is what I believe the quote was, I accidentally dropped it, for accidentally dropping a belt? Who was the first one to yell in the back? If she was yelling back, then how do you discipline somebody for yelling at someone who's yelling at them? I don't know that she would have started the yelling because apparently Becky was the one that was offended. So what the fuck? Again, it's wrestling. Got the guys yelling at each other. Or in this case, the girls yelling at each other. That's happened. I don't know. I have no idea of...
Well, here's another way to look at it. After the Nia Jax Charlotte thing, they tried to capitalize on it and come back with it.
Yeah.
Personal feelings aside, do you try to capitalize on the buzz that there's some problems with Becky and Charlotte, even though they're now on different brands and doing different things?
Well, I would. And unlike Nia Jax, they can actually work. So it might be a good match. The whole idea of, we talked about this, the whole idea of having identical championship belts, just a different color, and then just trading them. Like, okay, here's an example. You're a big baseball fan, right? They got the American League and they got the National League.
That's right.
And the winners of each goes to the not the Super Bowl, but the World Series.
That's
yes.
right. Yes.
What if the National League team that won just, we'd rather be in the American League? The American League said, well, we'd rather be in the, so we'll just switch. Would that work? Could that be done?
Well, it couldn't be done at that point in the season when you're already at the World Series, but there have been teams to switch leagues. Like, for instance, this year, the Astros were in the World Series. Traditionally, they had been a National League team. About a decade ago, they switched to the American League.
But they're not going to just both win the championship of their respective field, league, whatever, and then just, we'll switch.
No, that doesn't happen.
I wonder why.
Because it makes no sense.
It doesn't make any sense. Yes. So already they're fiddle-fucking around with both of their women's champions, and one of them apparently didn't like it. So again, why can't the women's champion wrestle on both brands and the men's champion for that matter, and all of the people on each brand want to fight and struggle and get ahead to face that champion, not champions. It's just all show business. It's like the two teams of the Harlem Globetrotters. Did we get Curly and Meadowlark, or did we get Goose? I mean, it's showbiz. So there's no pretense even being made here that it's legitimate. So when you got somebody like Charlotte that probably and rightfully should take herself very seriously, it's like, what the fuck are we doing here? So I don't know, but my God, as I said, in the way of train wreck segments, I will say this. In the way of train wreck segments with people being unprofessional to each other and trying to fuck with the other one, this was not that high up on the list for all this drama, in my opinion.
Well, some may look at this situation and hear about this situation and think that if all these wrestlers really have such a big problem, go talk to Vince. I know The Undertaker's not there anymore, but go have wrestler's court. And of course, if you had a wrestler's court, you would need a wrestler's attorney. And I know a man who's so good, he specializes in all sorts of law, from bird law to wrestling law. There's only one man I'm thinking of, Jim.
If it's the man that I'm thinking of, then that's right. There's only one man that specializes in wrestling law, bird law, and law, and that is the Legal Beagle himself.
Call Stephen P. News. If you need to sue. An outlaw mud show or two. Still to the rest.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, he may have started out as just merely a small-town bird lawyer, but he has blossomed. He has flown from the nest, and he has reached the pinnacle of personal injury attorneys and various forms of attorneys across America to be the man, the myth, the legend, Stephen P. New, newlawoffice.com, 888-692-8084. Whatever your legal need, if you have been wronged or maligned or injured or damaged, or in some way been the victim of greedy and avaricious individuals, Stephen P. New can fight for your justice, your compensation, your freedoms, and most importantly, your payoff. He'll get you paid. And Stephen P. New also is a fine wrestling fan, a sponsor of these programs, and also, I'll have you know, Bryan, that he has a fine podcast called House of Kayfabe that I've done a guest spot on, that will be airing in the not-too-distant future.
Well, hold on. You never do guest spots. You did a guest spot?
I did a guest spot for Stephen P. New.
Wow. That's big news.
That's new news, because he's a big new. He really is. He's a big man, and he can make you even bigger, folks. If you've been trodden down and left in the gutter on the side of the road like some piece of garbage by somebody that you want to get even with, call Stephen P. New, newlawoffice.com, 888-692-8084, and he will pick you up from the muck of the gutter and deliver you into a fluffy bird's nest on the ground.
All right, well, let's get a few more fluffy questions here, and let's stay on the topic of women's wrestling for a moment, because there have been several questions about several different things. I'm assuming this is for fun, but I got a kick out of it. Did you see the back and forth on Twitter with Dr. Britt Baker and Jade Cargill?
I did not. Can you enlighten me to this?
I can. Let me get this squeak out of the way while I try to readjust myself.
Still have not put that new chair together, eh?
I was going to have the last show with this chair be the experience this past week.
Uh-huh.
And because we do these shows so frequently, I didn't get time between then and now to rebuild or build the new chair, but I will.
I didn't have time. That's what I hear all the time. I didn't have time.
Well, anyway, back to the story that people care about. Someone named James tweeted out, I guess, a video of Britt Baker versus Thunder Rosa, said, rewatching the Thunder Rosa Britt Baker unsanctioned match, and the amount of pain Britt must have felt is insane. She's tough as nails. No wonder she owns the AEW women's division. To which Britt retweeted that with the quote, baddest bitch on the block, with a little emoji with a kiss. I guess that was calling Jade out, because Jade quote tweeted baddest bitch on the block with Brittany. You can't hold a candle to how I look. My face alone looks better. Let's not talk about your ass. And then she tagged Ty Conti. And I don't think I'm being too sexist by saying this, but famously Ty Conti has a fantastic ass.
I was about to say, I don't think either one of these young ladies needs to be tagging Ty Conti on anything, because that may get him in trouble.
Well, then Britt Baker responded to Jade Cargill saying, this is good, your tweets are as bad as your promos.
Whoa!
I was the baddest bitch on the block before you even decided you wanted to play wrestler. No one mentioned looks, but that's literally all you have, so I get it. If that was an attempt to body shame my ass, go ahead and kiss it. Again, the little emoji with the kiss, hashtag obsessed. To which Jade Cargill replied, body shame? The queen of talking about everyone else is playing the victim? Brittany, please. I can't help that God blessed me with great looks. Also, Britt Baker, you have yet to answer back to Ty Conti. Scared much? So again, we don't know how much of this is for show and how much of this is for fun, but
I'm hoping they're working, but given the level of maturity and or just the headspace of most modern wrestlers, I would believe it's legitimate. And that's why I say, don't either one of them talk about Ty Conti when you're talking about looks, whether it's asses or faces or anything else. Now Jane looks like Shelton Benjamin with a blonde wig.
Don't say that. That's not right. No.
But Britt's an attractive young lady, but Ty Conti, now I'm not talking about wrestling talent. Ty Conti would probably win the runway runoff between the three of those young ladies, but I think Britt's still firmly in the best wrestler category.
However, if it was a bodybuilding contest,
then there you go. Then Jane would have won it.
No contest.
No contest.
I'd like to think there really is some backstage feud between Britt Baker and Jade Cargill. A battle of wits, dare I say. Although, again, Britt Baker made her look like a fool in one tweet. Great job, Britt Baker.
I was about to say, if it's a battle of wits, I think Britt's the only one that's not unarmed.
Well, Jim, let's stay on the topic of women's wrestling because several people have sent this in. Did you see that Pro Wrestling Illustrated released their latest women's top 150 list? I think they...
No, I didn't. And why are we staying on women's wrestling?
Well, to get all these questions out of the way right now. Because I know how you feel about women's wrestling. So you didn't see the top 150.
I didn't see that.
Would you like to guess who is number one? Who's the number one women's wrestler?
How did they find 150? Well, when they find 500 for the men, generally, number 498 is some guy's mascot in Cleveland that you've never heard of before. But, I mean, are we asking who I think that they think is the most marketable person that they can put on the cover of the magazine and call them number one and sell more magazines, or who really is the best women's wrestler in the world? Would be two completely different things.
But that is interesting. And of course, that does play into things when you're talking about publishing. You put the person on the cover that you think will sell the most magazines. Do you think when it comes to the PWI 500 or the 150, do you think that would go into play? Or do you think it's a straight vote by the editorial staff over it?
What, are you fucking kidding? No, it's whoever. I mean, we've seen it with the number one in the men's list. It's never the best wrestler in the world. It's who we think will sell the most magazines, and or do we have more access to that guy than somebody that works for Vince? So we'll put them in there because it's going to be easier for us to fucking capitalize on it because Vince won't work with us. Otherwise than that, no, there's no legitimacy. There's no vote. there's people compiling lists, but it's not based on merit or talent. It's based on, we're a bunch of people making a list of who we think are the best wrestlers in the world, and hopefully the top 10 will sell our magazine. So who is the best women's wrestler in the world? We can go with Charlotte Flair. We can go, is Becky Lynch the best women's wrestler, or is she just the best personality? Rhea Ripley, she's got a lot of the tools except experience. Thunder Rosa or Serena Deeb may be the best actual technical women's wrestlers in the world, but neither one of them are in a main event spot or going to be put in a main event spot that can draw money like a Becky Lynch or a Charlotte Flair. Your thoughts? Who am I overlooking?
I can't say who you're overlooking because I may give away who you think will be number one. And again, you said it would be Who Moves Magazines. Who do you think they would pick?
Well, they're probably going to pick somebody like Bianca Belair because there's a lead time, and Becky Lynch wasn't back yet, probably by the time that they put this magazine together. And they're going to want somebody that's going to sell magazines. Is it Bianca Belair? Is it Sasha Banks?
At number one, Bianca Belair.
Okay, there you go.
Who's number two?
Charlotte Flair.
No.
No. Sasha Banks.
No.
No. Help me.
Utami Hayashishita.
What? What?
I'm sorry, I don't know this woman. Utami Hayashishita. That's how you say it. Hayashishita.
Are you fucking kidding?
From Stardom.
So a Japanese women's wrestler that nobody here even knows who none of the AEW fans ever utter this name. Okay, that's great. So how do they think they're going to sell any magazines on that?
At number three, Deonna Purrazzo from Impact.
Deonna Purrazzo, I have met. I've seen her work. Rip Rogers trained her.
That's right.
Or one of the people that trained her was Rip Rogers sometime back. She's a very fine young lady. Are you going to put her number 3 behind the WWE Women's Champion, or probably was at the time that magazine went to press, and an unheard of Japanese girl that nobody's ever seen? And now, and over Charlotte Flair, over Sasha Banks, over Becky Lynch, over Britt Baker. Okay, who's number 4?
From AEW, Dr. Britt Baker.
Oh, well, there she is.
And at number 5 from AEW, Thunder Rosa.
And again, we have no Sasha Banks, and we have no Charlotte Flair, and we have no Becky Lynch, and we have no bananas. We have no bananas.
Becky Lynch was out. You pointed that out. Becky Lynch was out. I can understand why Becky Lynch wouldn't be on this list.
She still existed. Wouldn't you put... If Becky Lynch had only been dead for 3 days, wouldn't you still put her above some unknown Japanese fetish object that plays in outlaw wrestling mud shows in Japan?
Well, at number 6, Sasha Banks.
Well, there you go.
And of course, right behind Sasha at number 7 is Sayuri from Stardom.
Oh, for God's sake.
Followed by Io Shirai from NXT. And again from Stardom at number 9, Tam Nakano.
What the?
And rounding out the top...
Wait a minute, Pam Nakano, Bull Nakano's delinquent niece?
No, Tam, not Pam. Tam.
Tam. Oh.
And rounding out the top 10 at number 10 from NXT, Raquel Gonzalez.
Where's Shirley Gotch?
Where's Rhea Ripley?
Where's Gladys Sammartino?
Gladys Sammartino? Who's that?
You know, I know there's a subculture of, because Ross the Merchandise Weasel in Ring of Honor smartened me up to this in 2009. There is a subculture of wrestling fans who watch the Japanese promotions like the Stardom and the whatever that, where they have the matches in the room in the apartment, that the Japanese Freddie Mercury, what was her name? Emi Sakura. They have those apartment matches over there where they come out from behind a curtain off the dining room, and all these little niche mud show promotions in Japan with the women, and they had a few also. What was the one women's promotion here 15 years ago? They were doing a lot of stuff, Shimmer or whatever.
Yeah, Dave Prazak.
Like Dave Prazak. Of course, he and Mike Hogwood as announcers on Ring of Honor looked like a, grumpy old man and his delinquent nephew out for a walk. But the merchandise weasel smartened me up. There would be guys calling the Ring of Honor office all the time because before Sinclair bought it, they not only sold their DVDs, but they sold all different indie promotions DVDs, including a lot of this girl stuff. And they said their regular fans wouldn't call up and ask about the girl stuff. They'd asked about, when's the new Ring of Honor, or when's the new, this independent promotion or that or whatever. But they'd also get these guys that call, "Oh, do you have the new Shimmer DVD with so and such girl, or the Stardom or whatever?" It's knuckle dragging mouth breathers that watch this stuff for whatever in their basement, and there's a whole subculture of these people around the periphery of pro wrestling fans, and they are probably buying the magazine because the unheard of people from Stardom are in it somehow in the top 10, along with recognized celebrities. That would be my guess.
Well, that was the top 150 from PWI.
We're not going through 11 through 150. Oh, shucks.
I only had the top 10 here. I am curious about the rest of the top 150. Who is number 149? That's what I'd like to know. But Jim, a few more questions before we wrap things up. This next one was sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Jim Valley.
Is that the Jim Valley?
The Jim Valley, the famous Jim Valley. Hi, Jim.
Hi, Jim.
You could say that, I guess, back and forth. You've talked in the past about business in the Memphis area tanking after Jerry Lawler lost the Loser Leaves Town match to Bill Dundee in 1985. Looking back now, do you think there was anything that could have been done? Like bringing in a new top babyface and heating them up sooner? Or any other star they could have brought in to maintain business, or at least keep it from dropping as much as it did? Using hindsight, how would you have booked the territory to set it up for success without Jerry Lawler? Or was Lawler simply irreplaceable and they should have learned that lesson from when Lawler was out with a broken leg in 1980?
Jim Valley's a friend of yours, right?
He is.
I'll take it easy on him, because his whole question is off kilter. I've never said in my life that business tanked after Lawler lost the Loser Leave Town match in December 1985. It did for a few weeks, but what I've talked about was the broken leg that he referenced, which was, that was an existential issue for the Memphis territory, because especially Memphis. Louisville was okay. Evansville was what Evansville was during that year. Nothing set the world on fire, but Memphis really dropped bad without Lawler. When he did the Loser Leave Town match in 85 with Dundee, that was simply to freshen him up for the eventual return. Now, the story that I've heard and what I may have commented on in the past was that they intended to leave him out longer, but business was suffering, so it was time to pull the trigger on it, and that's when they brought Lawler back in March around the angle where Jeff Jarrett, who had just been starting to referee, was attacked by Buddy Landel and Bill Dundee, and Jerry Jarrett got involved, and they went for his good eye because everybody knew Jerry was blind in one eye. And Eddie Marlin was Jeff's grandfather and Jerry's son-in-law, but Eddie Marlin was the authority figure in the promotion, so he rescinded the Loser Leave Town ruling on Lawler so that Lawler could come back and team up with Dutch Mantell to get even with Bill Dundee and Buddy Landel, and that's where they did that incredible Texas death match that went, 40 falls? And, in that program, and did, I think, was that next to, I think that may have been the last sellout of the Mid-South Coliseum for wrestling.
I think so.
Because Lawler and Curt Hennig in 87, they jacked up the ticket prices, but only did about 9,000 people.
And Lawler and Idol in 87, I don't think sold out either.
No, they bigger ticket prices again, but didn't quite sell out. So yeah, so that was a planned absence. The one where Lawler broke his leg and was out for the majority of the year, that was obviously unplanned and much more serious because without Lawler for a long period of time, Memphis was dying. And they had teased him coming back, and he tried to come back a couple of times, but ended up re-injuring the injury because he came back and had the match with Killer Carl Krupp, where since Lawler still had his leg in a cast, they made Krupp put on a plaster cast from his hip to his foot also, and they had a cast match. But Lawler legitimately in the cast, in the process of beating Killer Carl Krupp with a leg drop with the plaster cast, hurt his own fucking injured leg, and it set his recovery back. But they were getting desperate by fall. Because business in the modern era had never been that bad. And they tried everybody. It's just, you could run the rest of the territory without Lawler, and it'd be okay. It wouldn't, and you ain't going to sell out anything, and it ain't going to set the world on fire, but it probably wouldn't fall completely apart because Lawler had taken time away from the other towns in the past, and the people were more used to it. But in Memphis, if the Coliseum ran 2 or 3 weeks in a row without Lawler, you started seeing it. No matter what they did, it would drop. So anyway, that was the thing. They were going to keep him out a bit longer, but things were putrid. So they heated up Dundee and Landell with the thing with Jeff and Jerry and all that stuff as an excuse to bring Lawler back. And then they ended up selling out to Mid-South Coliseum. So it all worked out well in the end.
All right, Jim. Well, before we wrap things up with what may be our final question, a couple quick things here at the end of the show. I did want to mention, because several people did get in touch with us, you did not watch the XPW Dark Side episode, correct? So we're not going to review it.
I did not. I did not because I categorized that along with the bank addicted drug robber segment and did not watch that because I don't want to give any support to these garbage people that do these garbage things. However, next week's going to be the steroid trial. So this week, we should mention that. That'll be a good one.
Is that a 1-part or a 2-part?
I think it's just 1 part, and I wish it was longer, but
all right.
Unfortunately.
One other thing I want to mention, and we said that someone would gobble it up, and they did. Jim, can you type in a website for me real quick?
Sure. What do you want me to type in?
Type it. NashIsOnDixie'sLap.com.
Oh no. Okay. Hold on 1 second. I gotta get my keyboard out here.
Once again for everyone, NashIsOnDixie'sLap.com.
Wait a minute. Nash is on Dixie'sLap.com. Oh, well, I guess I shouldn't have put the fucking apostrophe in there.
No, you can't put an apostrophe in a website.
Well, I did. I'm a fucking proper speller. That's all I'm saying to you.
All right. Well, we can try this again.
Nash is on Dixie'sLap.com. Well, wait a minute. I got the Sleep Number fucking website.
Oh, you didn't
find any results for Nash is on Dixie'sLap.com.
NashIsOnDixie'sLap.com?
Yes.
Oh, I got a picture of Dixie Carter groping Kevin Nash.
Well, what the? Hold on. Now I've got to see this now. I typed it in the Google thing. I didn't type it in the search thing. Nash is on Dixie'sLap.com. Oh, now I got it. Okay.
And I don't want anyone to get in trouble, so I'll just give credit to Kevin, who apparently is a listener who created this. I don't know if he wants his last name attached to it, but this was sent to me.
Do you see what's down at the bottom?
The terms.
It says, text Jim to 64,000 WSJ wine terms. Well, there we go. Dixie has man hands also. All right. Nash is on dixieslap.com, just for those so inclined.
All right. Well, Jim.
But I actually, when I got the Sleep Number bed site, that probably had something to do with it as well anyway.
Well, again, maybe our final question here. This one was sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Bronco Bronson. And actually, no, it wasn't. It was sent on Twitter using the hashtag CornyDriveThru, now that I realize I said everything wrong. But here's his question. Can Jim explain the relationship between Hulk Hogan and Jimmy Hart? Every time Hogan has made an appearance in WWE throughout the past few years, Jimmy Hart was with him in most occasions, despite the short tenure as Hogan's manager in WWF and WCW. On air, of course, he's referring to there.
Yes.
So what is the role of Jimmy Hart in Hulk Hogan's life, and what is the relationship?
Jimmy has actually been at various points, and I'm not saying Jimmy was like his agent, like was negotiating his film roles or whatever, but Jimmy Hart is the most energetic, go-getting motherfucker in the world. Jimmy Hart knows this, going back to when he was a manager in Memphis. He was on radio stations every week because not only did he have the music background, but he was glib and he was a celebrity in Memphis, but he'd go to other places. He's a publicity machine. He works his ass off. He's dependable. He's honest. You can hand Jimmy the key to your fucking money vault and, not worry about it. And when they were, and Hulk had known Jimmy since Memphis. I mean, when Hulk came back and did that one match with Lawler in 81, Jimmy was his manager. And Jimmy's told me the story and before of exactly how Hulk made him the offer, and I don't want to retell it because I won't get all the details right or when the time frame that it was. But basically, Hogan, I mean, as a big star and not only doing wrestling, but also media and also movie parts and traveling around or whatever, he wanted somebody that could, help him with keeping track of shit and doing publicity and just a loyal, responsible, dependable person to handle a lot of his shit. And he had Jimmy for a number of years. It wasn't like, oh, Jimmy, I'll get you booked over at so-and-so. He had Jimmy on a salary to be his manager, quote unquote, in a variety of things. And they've just always got along. And so I got to admit that I don't see why somebody else hasn't done that before, because Jimmy he's insane. I mean, it's not like they live together and they're inseparable now and they're still working together on a regular basis. But if Hogan has a project or something that comes up, if he's going to a wrestling promotion for a period of time, or if he's just doing something on location or publicity, a lot of times he'll have Jimmy go with him. And they've just, they've been friends that way, but Jimmy's invaluable in terms of being, his Guy Friday, his man in charge, his manservant, if you will. And that's how that came about, but that was a legitimate business relationship and not something that was being just booked, and they didn't have anything to do with each other outside of on-camera wrestling.
Were you surprised by it? I mean, knowing Hogan and Hogan's reputation, he's surprised that Jimmy Hart did it and has put up with Hogan and that they seem to get along?
Well, no, but Jimmy I don't know that Jimmy Hart has ever put up with anybody. Jimmy is so happy and up and jovial. Remember Dr. Tom Pritchard, when he'd see me and Jimmy sitting, he'd say, oh, there they are, the feather and the spike. Jimmy's like, oh, poo-poo, I love you. Everything's great. Oh, we're doing it. And I'm like, this motherfucker and fuck this and fuck that. Jimmy doesn't have to put up with anybody. Jimmy loves being out and being active. Jimmy loves, I don't know if he's still the same way, but when all the years I knew him, he slept maybe 4 or 5 hours a night. He lived in Memphis, in the Memphis territory, but he was up first thing on a Monday morning, doing the radio, plugging the show that night at the Coliseum. He'd be the first one to Louisville the next day, 400 miles away, never missed a shot. He's dependable, he's loyal, and he's smart to the business and show business. So as far as Jimmy having to put up with Hogan, I mean, my God, if if you're Jimmy Hart, there's people probably easier to put up with that aren't the biggest star in your chosen business and aren't going to pay you a salary to just fucking travel the world with them. So I don't think it was hard on Jimmy's part. And for Hogan, Jimmy Hart has to be the most unobtrusive, unoffensive, and unannoying person in the history of the world. So that was no reach. So I don't wonder that they got along, and still do, apparently.
He was so reliable, waking up early, doing all those radio shows. He was also the top heel in the territory for several years and so important. And really, in my eyes, one of Lawler's greatest rivals, if not the greatest rival, actually,
Yeah.
Jimmy Hart. How well was he paid? I mean, should they have done anything different?
Oh, yeah,
I mean, is there a world where they're able to pay him to not go to the WWF and he's figured in for whatever the future is? And of course, we know how things would end. But in terms of how he was paid or taken care of there and leaving, what are your thoughts?
No, there's no world in which they would have paid him anywhere near what he made in the WWF. Even though you could make the case that he was worth it, although by 1984 and when he left and the expansion business had gone down a little bit from the peak years, but you could make the claim that he was worth almost anything because of just how over he was and how he had carried that territory on the heel side. But you can also make the realistic case that Jerry Jarrett wasn't going to pay anybody as much money as they were going to make in the WWF, whether they were worth it or not. And, you know, Jimmy had the opportunity. He'd had his feelings hurt a number of times because they could have paid him more than they did. And now, you know, I'm saying a top heel, and Jimmy was that for some time. I never asked him about his check. I know what I was making when he was on top of me, and he'd had to be at least twice that. So, you know, if Jimmy's making $700, $800 to $1,000 a week in the Memphis territory in 1982, what is that worth today? $700 to $1,000 in 1982 today would be probably $2,000 or $3,000. That was comfortable, but it wasn't going to be what he could make in New York. And he wanted to, I guess he felt like he had done everything that he could in Memphis. And also he felt like he wanted to be more appreciated and more highly paid and take the chance at that point. When he got in the business in 79, he was just happy to be Lawler's stooge and stand there and hold the mic or stand there and hold the belt because he had no other experience. But after 5 or 6 years and obviously being good, and everybody making over him and him having been in a top spot in the company, he wanted to try to see if he could hang with the big boys. So overall, you know, yeah, they could have taken care of him, but they couldn't pay him not to go if he wanted to go. And then if they'd have set that precedent, paying a manager more than anybody else in the company was making, besides Lawler, would have been just crazy. So it just, you know, there wasn't going to be any other thing but that happening. If WWF had the spot open, he was going to take it, which he did. And that was part of the reason then he was able to, you know, tell Vince and the guys up there, well, look, there's this Randy Savage down there. Boy, he's wild. And get some, you know, some of the other boys a chance or a look-see or a spot or whatever.
With that, the drive-thru is closed. All right. Of course, you can hear us on The Experience this weekend, wherever you find your favorite podcast. The drive-thru back with you next week, right here, wherever you are, wherever we are. Of course, get access to classic episodes of The Drive-Thru and The Experience by becoming patrons. Patreon.com/Cornette gets you access to the archive from the very beginning in 2013. Check it out today. Patreon.com/Cornette. Of course, the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and search for Jim Cornette for clips of episodes, full episodes, omnibus collections. Of course, the very popular Travis Heckel artwork. We've had so many guest artists. We'll still have some more in the next few weeks, but Travis is doing more and his artwork is kicking ass again. Check it out today. The official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. You can follow Jim on Twitter at @TheJimCornette. You can follow me on Twitter at GreatBryanLast. You can hear me on the 605 Superpodcast at 605pod.com, available wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Don't forget about Cornette's Collectibles at jimcornette.com, or would you rather they forget and you want to talk about the auction? What would you like to say?
Well, just remember, the auction opens up this Thursday, and we invite everybody to bid early and often.
jimcornette.com. Of course, the drive-thru is brought to you by the law office of Stephen P. New, 888-692-8084. Get even with Stephen at newlawoffice.com. But until this weekend on The Experience, and next week right back here on the drive-thru, for Jim Cornette, I'm the great Bryan Last. Tally-ho!
Ho, ho!